In the DC world, I start with Ultraman. While this video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyright or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter M87 Rays. 7/10 Earth Kansas Clerk, Kara, and Jello reunited next to the tattered orbital track that was damaged by the aftermath. Kara, who had already found her battle rhythm, was puzzled and asked Clerk, "Why did you let Zod escape back?" Kara looked towards the Indian Ocean. Clerk said solemnly, "What?" Although she was a little confused, Kara still turned her sight towards the Indian Ocean according to Clerk's instructions. Her supervision allowed her to see clearly what was happening over the Indian Ocean even if she was thousands of miles away. After seeing the huge machine floating over the Indian Ocean, Kara covered her mouth in surprise and said, "Planet transformation engine." Yes, the planet transformation engine requires two engines to be started at the same time. If my calculation is correct, the other one will probably reach Metropolis soon. Clerk's expression was quite solemn. He instructed Jello and Kara respectively. "Jello, you go to Metropolis to block the planet transformation engine. Kara, you stay here to guard against Zod's other men. Zod will definitely go to Metropolis, and Jello alone is no match for him." Kara said to Clerk worriedly, "Carl, let me go to Metropolis with you." "No, Kara." Clerk said seriously, "Even if my father solves all the soldiers sent by Zod to the Fortress of Solitude, I'm not sure whether Zod still has hidden soldiers. Promise me, okay?" Hearing this, Kara gritted her teeth and replied, "Okay, I promise you, Carl." Before Kara finished speaking, Jello activated the armor's nano repair system. He walked in front of Clerk and said, "I'll leave first, Clerk, be careful." As soon as Zero finished speaking, Oyo activated the transmission system to send Zero back to Metropolis, and Superman also accelerated and headed for the Indian Ocean. At this moment, on the Black Zero, which was approaching Metropolis and carrying the planet transformation engine, Zod was holding his chest, with a look of pain on his face from time to time. Then he broke his right hand and put several dislocated bones back to their original positions. Kal-El. Looking at the scenery in the distance, Zod's face showed a sad face. After so many years of fighting, Zod felt such terrible power in his opponent for the first time. They were all Kryptonians, but Superman's power seemed to have no limit. Once he used a stronger power than Superman, Superman would burst out with a stronger power. Simply put, Superman is always above you. "General, Black Zero will soon arrive at the designated location, and the planet transformation engine can be started at any time." Scientist O walked up to General Zod and said to Zod. Turning around and looking at the scientist Zod said, "You did a good job. How is the planet transformation engine in the Indian Ocean?" "It's going well. Although Kal-El went to stop it, his strength is obviously not enough to stop the planet transformation engine." Scientist O answered confidently. "Once the planet transformation engine is started, it cannot be stopped. That kind of terrible energy is enough to crush your light that wants to stop the planet transformation engine within 10 seconds. But for some reason, Zod just felt a little depressed. At this time, Fira and Eek, who had changed into new armor and restored their physical strength to their peak, came to Zod. "General," Fira said to Zod with a Kryptonian salute, "the soldiers we sent to occupy Kal-El's base have lost contact." Fira was naturally talking about the Fortress of Solitude. Alas. Zod sighed, lowered his head and clenched his fists, thinking to himself, "Jor-El, even if Krypton is destroyed, will you still suppress me?" Asking this question from the heart, General Zod felt so powerless, even more powerless than when Krypton was destroyed. But Zod is still the general of Krypton. This duty makes him not show weakness in front of anyone, not even his personal guards. Their names will be on the monument of New Krypton. General Zod ordered coldly, "Now, the spacecraft will accelerate at full speed, reach the designated target point, and then start the planet transformation engine." "Yes." Scientist O responded. In the sky of Metropolis, Zero, wearing jack armor, hovered there. "How is the evacuation of citizens?" Zero asked Oya. "The time is too short, Jello." Oya replied, "Even if you notified LexCorp and Waynek and asked multiple forces to evacuate at the same time, there are still many citizens who don't have time to evacuate in time. However, according to my scan, many high-rise buildings and most areas of the ground are empty." "That's good." Jello felt a little relieved, and then said, "Transmit all the 87 particle storage tanks here. I want to completely destroy Zod's wish to transform the Earth into a new Krypton." Oa said to Jello while transmitting the particle storage tanks, but you must pay attention. The side effects of the M87 beam cannon of the Zombie armor are very strong. I will. Nodding to show that he knew, Jello then used his mind to activate the small broken watch, first took back the Jack armor, and then put on the Zombie armor. From the appearance alone, the Zombie armor is not much different from the first generation armor. The two rows of luminous objects on the chest can best distinguish the two. But the weapons of the two sets of armor are one in the sky and one in the ground. Finally I have a chance to drive you, Zombie. Taking a deep breath, Zero activated the weapon of Zombie's armor, the M87 beam cannon. The armor on his right arm was constantly deforming, and with the sound of clicking and clicking, a hand cannon appeared. 87 particle storage tanks appeared behind Zero. Under the control of telekinesis, these 87 particle storage tanks all hovered quietly in the air. Each storage tank extended a transmission tube, connected to the M87 beam cannon, and began to slowly transfer energy to the M87 beam cannon. When the energy was almost halfway transmitted, Zero felt that his right arm became very heavy, as if the gravity system of the small broken watch had been activated. Energy equivalent to 87 times of his own body was gathered on the M87 beam cannon at the same time, which was a challenge for Zero. Looking at the setting sun in the distance, Zero felt as if he had received a little comfort. The holographic interface showed that the energy of the M87 beam cannon was full. M87 beam. Jello roared, and a blue-eyed high-temperature beam several times thicker than a 1,000-year-old tree shot out, turning into an angry dragon and attacking Black Zero in the distance. At this moment, Jello seemed like a god king who threw a divine spear, or a mythical hero who rebelled against the gods, and delivered a fatal blow to his enemy. Boom. A terrible loud noise came from behind Jello. This was the terrible recoil of the M87 beam. If it was on the ground, the recoil of this shot could directly shatter at least a dozen skyscrapers. Zushian vs. 3/8 Earth metropolis. At this moment, many citizens who are still running for their lives not long ago all looked up at the sky, looking at the blue-eyed beam that tore the sky apart. In the laboratory of the CAD-Mars project, Lex saw all this through satellite broadcast. What a terrible power! If humans can also master this power, with evil thoughts in mind, Lex just watched the M87 beam approaching Black Zero step by step. On Black Zero, the Kryptonian radar also captured the trace of M87's light, and Scientist hurriedly reported to Zod. General, there is a high heat energy source ahead. We have to. No, the speed is too fast, we don't have time to dodge. Scientist's face turned ashen, and after saying all this, he collapsed on the ground in despair. On Black Zero now, Earth's science and technology are the best, and he is also the most aware of how terrible the power of the beam captured on the radar is. What? General Zod was startled, but he had no time to react. He could escape, but the planet transformation engine that had not yet been fully activated could not. So Zod made a very difficult decision: everyone evacuate Black Zero. General? Fira asked subconsciously. Zod ordered all the Kryptonians who are still alive, don't ask, everyone evacuate. But even so, Zod couldn't change anything. The scientist who was slumped on the ground, murmured to himself. It's impossible, it's too late. The next second, the blue-eyed high-heat light turned into an angry dragon and penetrated the entire Black Zero. The terrible high temperature could not withstand even a second of the field shield. After penetrating the shield, the M87 light pierced into Black Zero, and all the metals that blocked the path of the M87 light were vaporized. An unlucky Kryptonian soldier happened to be standing on the light track. In just 10 seconds, he was vaporized. The M87 light rushed all the way to the power room of Black Zero as if it was in an empty space. With the dazzling flames, Black Zero lost all its power, and the planet transformation engine that Zod and his team had placed their hopes on also disappeared in the flames. Boom, 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 fireworks exploded in the sky. Even though they were far in the sky, many citizens on the ground still had tinnitus, and those with weaker constitutions even had mild concussions. Oyo conveyed the result of this shot to Zero. It hit perfectly. The M87 beam not only consumes a lot of energy, but also carries a lot of burden. For some reason, Zero felt that the sunset in the distance seemed to become redder, as red as blood that could drip at any time, red enough to make people intoxicated. Sue change US, -04 Jack. After switching armor with his mind and putting on the Jack armor, Zero's condition improved a lot, and the Zombie armor was thrown back into the small broken watch to repair the metal fatigue caused by the M87 beam cannon. As soon as he changed the armor, Zero felt his heart tremble, and the spark module quickly provided him with an ultra shield. Subconsciously, Zero used the Ultra Shield to block himself. Boom, boom, boom. 3 terrible forces burst out on the Ultra Shield at the same time, and Zero's face became very heavy. The revenge of the Kryptonians is coming. Even with the power provided by the Radon, Zero could not fight against 3 Kryptonians at the same time. After a stalemate of 5 seconds, Zero fell to the ground like a meteor. "Oya, where is my landing point?" Zero asked Oya while falling. Carlson Riverside Park. Most of the evacuations have been completed there, and the citizens within 3 blocks can go there to take shelter within 3 minutes. Oya replied. "Okay, send me kryptonite weapons at any time." After giving Oya an order, Zero began to adjust his body shape, and finally he approached the ground with his hands on the ground. He suddenly inserted the shield into the ground, and the terrible force pushed Zero backwards all the way. A lot of soil was cut by him, which increased the friction for him. Even so, Zero slid for more than 200 meters before stopping. The angry Kryptonian warriors would not give Zero more breathing time. The most angry Kryptonian warrior Eek was the first to rush up, swinging his fist like a sandbag at Zero's back. But Zero's telekinesis moved, and Eek was bounced away, breaking several trees before stopping. Then he threw his shield forward, temporarily repelling Führer, and then stood up as quickly as possible, and his right fist collided with the angry General Zod. You deserve to die." General Zod roared. The planet transformation engine was his only hope, and not long ago, Zero destroyed his hope. Too lazy to argue with Zod, the power gathered on his right fist, and then exploded. Zero used the Ultra Blast fist to repel Zod. After briefly forcing back the 3 Kryptonian warriors, Zero had a chance to breathe. But the 3 Kryptonian warriors had no intention of letting Zero go. They regrouped and formed a triangle formation to surround Zero. General Zod said, "This time, there will be no elf-family kid to help you." "That's not certain, Zod." He spread his right hand, and the Ultra Spear appeared in it. Holding the spear tightly, Jello could feel infinite confidence, and a large amount of Radon entered his body, providing him with endless power. At this moment, Jello was fearless. "Killed him." General Zod waved his hand, and Eek and Führer rushed towards Jello together. With years of cooperation, Eek and Führer have their own set of fighting styles. Eek, who was thick-skinned and strong, took the lead and punched Jello's shield, making a very unpleasant sound, while Führer jumped into the air and tried to launch a sneak attack on Jello. But Jello, who has the power of ultra telekinesis, would not be so easily attacked. The spark module flashed, and a silver flash passed by. Years of combat experience made Führer alert. She jumped back instinctively and barely avoided the silver flash. But even so, Führer's armor was cut open, revealing the combat uniform inside. "What is that?" Führer was shocked and drew out her dagger, and attacked Zero again. On the way, she was attacked by the silver flash again, making it difficult for her to concentrate on attacking Zero. She quickly exhaled a lot of cold air to slow down the speed of the thing. Only then did Führer see the true face of the silver flash. It was an object that looked very much like an Earth fighter. For Zero, this thing had another name, Ultra Spark. Seeing that Führer and Eek were unable to suppress each other at the same time, General Zod shot out a hot sight. Zero, who was in a stalemate with Eek, had no time to dodge and was hit by the hot sight. The angry attack brought unimaginable power to Zero, and blasted him hundreds of meters away on the spot. Chapter buffered full, 9/10. In the Carlson Riverside Park on Earth Metropolis, Zero was fighting 3 Kryptonian warriors alone. General Zod's thermal vision blasted Zero back about 500 meters, smashing countless trees, and Zero fell heavily to the ground. With Zero's body as the center, the ground with a radius of more than 300 meters was cracked and sank at least 1 meter. The surrounding 10 hectares of land were also damaged to varying degrees. This old thing is really strong. As the soil fell, Zero stood up from the ground. Due to the bombardment of the thermal vision just now, Jack's armor had a chart black. From the holographic interface, Zero learned about the damage of Jack's armor. The overlimit state improved from the overlimit release could not be activated due to damage, so Zero absorbed all the Radon stored in Jack's armor in one breath. This greatly increased his strength. Here it comes. Zero stacked the spear with his sensors and blocked Führer's attack, while Eek and Zod rushed out from the flank. Die. Kill. 2 deafening shouts of killing came at the same time. Jello immediately threw his shield towards Eek and controlled the Ultra Spark to stab Zod. Facing the extremely sharp Ultra Spark, Zod didn't care at all. He carried the Ultra Spark forcefully. Even if the Ultra Spark finally pierced his skin, he never stopped. Eek also smashed the shield with a punch and continued to rush towards Jello. The attack did not work, but Jello achieved his goal. With the little time he gained, he burst out his strength to force Fira back, then used telekinesis to speed up and came to Eek's side. Using the skills he learned from Leo, he grabbed Eek's arm, and suddenly exerted force with both hands, throwing Eek towards Zod in a way similar to a shoulder throw. Boom! With a loud noise, Zod and Deco collided closely. Taking advantage of this gap, Zero quickly attacked Fira, first blasting her armor with an Ultra Blast Fist, and then oil-handed a Kryptonite Ice Axe to Zero. Ah! With a shout, a green light suddenly appeared, and Zero swung the Kryptonite Ice Axe from top to bottom, slashing Fira's combat uniform and oxygen mask. The sharp Kryptonite Ice Axe first cut the combat uniform, and then cut Fira's skin, and a little blood flowed from the wound. Under the green light of kryptonite, Fira, who had a wound and her armor was not yet complete, only felt dizzy, and the power she gained from the yellow sun was gradually disappearing. Fira. Throwing Eco away from him, General Zod shouted, and then a heat vision attacked Zero. However, Zod's target was not Zero, but the Kryptonite Ice Axe. As soon as the Kryptonite Ice Axe came into contact, the thermal vision completely vaporized it. In response, Jello said that he didn't care. There were more than a dozen identical Kryptonite Ice Axes on the ultralight, as well as 5 Kryptonite laser guns and hundreds of Kryptonite smoke bombs, ensuring that these Kryptonian friends would have plenty of opportunities to use them. As the Kryptonite Ice Axe disappeared, Fira regained some of her strength. Regardless of the faint weakness deep in her body, Fira took advantage of her speed and dodged in front of Jello with a left hook. Ultra Explosion Fist. Time was too short, and Jello could only use Ultra Explosion Fist to hastily respond to the enemy. The two fists collided, accompanied by the sound of crackling, and the shockwave was set off again, spreading nearly 1,000 meters away. Countless trees were broken, a large amount of soil was splashed everywhere, and several hectares of land were turned over, and this was just the consequence of an aftermath. After dozens of loud noises, the 300-hectare Carlson Riverside Park was destroyed by the aftermath of the four-man battle. Boom. After the loud noise, Jello and Fira were repelled. Seeing Jello being repelled, Ek wanted to take advantage of this opportunity to launch a sneak attack. But General Zod stopped him. That guy is coming. General Zod looked solemn. As the strongest person on Black Zero, he had the strongest superpowers. His supervision could see things that Ek and Fira could not see. Swoosh, a slight sound came from the air, and the next second, a red and blue figure stood in front of Jello. As soon as this figure appeared, Zero felt extremely relieved. The last bit of Radon disappeared to repair the damage. He walked to Clerk in the battle-damaged jack armor and said unhappily, "You guys are really strong. There is no part of my body that doesn't hurt now. Sorry, I'm late." Clerk said to Zero with a little apology, and then he looked at Zod, Eco, and Fira, his 3 compatriots, with a sullen face and a murderous tone. "Zod, what my father couldn't solve back then, I will do it. Come on. Kal-El." With the hope of rebuilding Krypton shattered, General Zod had nothing to fear. He tore the armor on his body into pieces, indicating that he was going to fight to the death. "Leave the other 2 to me." Zero organized his strength and locked his eyes on Fira and Eco. "Well," Claire replied softly, "be careful. If you can't handle it, leave them to me. That's going to have to wait until I lose." Without waiting for Claire to reply, Jello took a step forward, stomping his right leg on the ground, and a terrible force burst out, pushing him towards the 2 lieutenants. In response, Zod did not take action because he had a stronger enemy, Superman. Almost instantly, Zod and Superman rose into the sky and started a fierce battle. On the ground, Jello simply put away the Ultra Shield, gave up Defensor, and let the Spark Module provide him with a chain whip. Countless arcs flashed on the chain whip. Jello danced it, turning it into an arc tornado and attacked Eek's arms. With a light snap, the electromagnetic chain whip wrapped around Eek's arms, but Zero's goal was not to trap him. Fira wanted to stop him, but was blocked by Zero's spear. The next second, electricity exploded, and Eek was bathed in the current. The strong current ran through Eek's body and focused on destroying the Kryptonian armor on Eek. The dazzling blue arc slowly disappeared, and the Kryptonian armor on Eek could not withstand the damage and fell off piece by piece. Now, Eek and Fira both had places that could be hurt by kryptonite weapons. Zero swung hard, and the chain whip exploded inch by inch. Then he threw the Ultra Spear towards Eek, and turned around to fight with Fira. The sunset in the distance gradually sank, and the light began to become blurred. The beautiful and soft halo seemed not to belong to the metropolis where a fierce battle was taking place. The duel between Zero and the two Kryptonian warriors also slowly entered a white-hot state. Chapter 1 verses 2, 10/10. In the Carlson Riverside Park on Earth Metropolis, the battle between Zero and two Kryptonian warriors gradually became fierce, and the outcome gradually became clear. Roar. Without the protection of the armor, Eek roared, shattering the armor all over his body, revealing the muscle lines that had been tempered by thousands of hammers. With bloodshot eyes, Eek ran towards Zero. Every time his feet touched the ground, it would bring a strong vibration that was no less than an earthquake. With a loud bang, Eek hit Zero's shield. He continued to burst out with strength, and even Zero was pushed back by Eek. While Eek attracted most of Zero's combat power, Fira launched a sneak attack on Zero's back again. Seeing this, Zero whispered, just in time. The next second, Fira, holding a Kryptonian dagger, stabbed Jack's armor on the right shoulder, but Fira clearly remembered that she stabbed Zero in the back. Why was it the right shoulder? Not good. Fira's face changed. She wanted to escape immediately after realizing something was wrong, but Jello didn't give her and Eek a chance. Boom! It was like two invisible hammers were smashing down. Jello used his telekinesis to form a hammer that temporarily knocked the two of them unconscious. In just 1/10 of a second, he could use his killer move. Kryptonite smoke bombs were successfully transmitted. A dozen kryptonite smoke bombs fell at Jello's feet at the same time, and opened the moment they touched the ground. With the sound of hissing, green kryptonite smoke continued to gush out. Without the protection of the oxygen mask, Eek and Fira were completely exposed to the kryptonite smoke. The smoke mixed with kryptonite particles took away their strength. In just 3 seconds, Eek and Fira began to feel dizzy. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Jello quickly used his telekinesis to control the kryptonite smoke from dispersing, forming two smoke balls to wrap up Fira and Eek. The kryptonite smoke continued to take away their strength, making them gradually weaker. When the kryptonite smoke in the smoke ball was almost consumed, Zero dispersed his telekinesis and asked Oya to transmit 2 kryptonite laser guns. Z's bang, the charging and firing were done in one go, and 2 green lasers shot towards the 2 Kryptonian warriors. As soon as they came into contact with the kryptonite laser, Fira and Eek felt their strength gradually fade away, even more seriously than the weakness brought to them by the kryptonite smoke before. Coupled with the impact force and high heat, the 2 warriors were seriously injured. Sizzle electric arcs flashed on the 2 kryptonite laser guns. Zero knew that the 2 guns had reached their limits, so he stopped pulling the trigger. While the 2 Kryptonian warriors were seriously injured and their self-healing abilities had not yet fully taken effect, Zero used telekinesis to bring Fira and Eek together. The platinum gold Synopsis particles continued to gather and finally flew towards the 2 Kryptonian warriors. The strong recoil pushed Zero back and forth. His legs were deeply embedded in the ground. He squeezed out all the energy in his body. Oya, scan for life signs. There are 2 weak life signs ahead. Oya responded. Upon hearing this news, Zero's face darkened, thinking that they are worthy at being the first tank race in the DC world. This health bar is really ridiculously long. Zero said to Oya, give me 2 kryptonite ice axes. Transmission completed. As soon as Oya's voice disappeared, 2 kryptonite ice axes appeared beside Zero. Using the last bit of telekinesis, Zero used 2 kryptonite ice axes to pierce the scapula of the 2 Kryptonian warriors who were still breathing, ensuring that they had no room to fight back. After doing all this, Zero could no longer suppress his fatigue, and the whole person lay on the ground in a big letter shape. Looking up at the sky, Zero saw Clergan General Zod, who was still fighting fiercely. Thousands of meters above the sky, Clergan General Zod kept colliding, and each collision was no less than a thunder. Even the citizens hiding in the basement could hear the terrible sound in the sky. Colliding with Clerg again, and then separated, with a glance from the corner of his eyes, Zod noticed that the battle in Carlson Riverside Park was over. But the winners were not his 2 lieutenants. No. Zod roared, and all the past events came to his mind. Rebuilding Krypton was already an unattainable dream. Coupled with the defeat of 2 important subordinates, this made him collapse even more. Looking at Clerg, General Zod shouted heartbreakingly, Kal-El. You destroyed the hope of Krypton. No, the hope of Krypton has never disappeared. Clerg's face was calm. Until this moment, he had not completely given up persuading Zod. Listen to me, Zod. When Krypton was destroyed, an artificial intelligence named Brainio took away a city. In other words, there are at least tens of thousands of compatriots still alive. We can build a Krypton with a brighter future. What? Hearing this, even if his heart was as hard as stone, General Zod couldn't help but be stunned. Krypton was everything he fought for, but he was not someone who was easily persuaded. He would not believe Clerk's words so easily. Ha ha ha. General Zod suddenly laughed like crazy, then he looked at Clerk and said, "Do I have any reason to believe you?" Kal-El. Clerk didn't answer. He knew that people like Zod would not be easily convinced by him. He clenched his fists helplessly, and Clerk's eyes became sharp. In this case, let's decide everything with victory. General Zod roared and flew towards Clerk. At this moment, his speed seemed to be several times faster than before. Even Clerk didn't react for a while and was hit by General Zod. Bang! A heavy punch several times stronger than before hit Clerk, causing Clerk to fly towards the city below. After smashing through more than a dozen buildings, Clerk stopped, and Zod also attacked at this time. Is this all your strength? Kal-El. Chapter 11. The Miraculous Resurrection. Earth Metropolis. In a building with a big hole in it, Zod punched Clerk again, but Clerk caught his wrist. Zod, who had experienced many battles, immediately changed his tactics and tried to hit Clerk with a sidekick, but Clerk's eyes turned red and two heat visions shot out, knocking General Zod back. Boom boom boom. The high-rise buildings made of reinforced concrete were as fragile as biscuits in the eyes of the Kryptonians. Zod, who was repelled by the heat vision, smashed through more than a dozen buildings in succession. And this was just a slight aftermath of the battle between the two Kryptonians. In the ruins of Carlton Riverside Park, Zero noticed the battle between Clerk and Zod in the urban area of Metropolis. If this goes on, there'll definitely be casualties. Zero gritted his teeth and climbed up from the ground. He regained a little strength and activated the small broken watch with his mind. The jack armor was retracted, and the eddy armor appeared on Zero after a strong white light. Zero staggered to his feet and tried to take off, but fell into the mud after 2 flutters. The power is still too much, Zero. Please return to the ultralight immediately and recover for at least 20 hours before joining the battle, otherwise your body will suffer irreversible damage. Oi's slightly worried voice sounded in Zero's ears. Grabbing a handful of loose soil, Zero climbed up from the ground again, with no expression on his face, just silently answering on Oya. Oya, no teleportation. ... Without Zero's permission, Oya could not do any extra actions, and could only watch Zero fly high in the sky. With the help of Eddie Zamar's telekinetic amplifier, Zero logged the vital signs of all citizens in the battle range of Clerk and General Zod. Of that still 103,723 people. Locking each target, Zero, standing high in the sky, opened his arms and forcibly squeezed energy from his body in an irreversible way. First, countless tractor beams moved the rubble pressing on the victims, then used defensive positions to protect them, then used calming beams to calm them down, and finally used healing beams to repair their physical injuries. The light shone on the earth, bringing hope to all living beings. Even all their old illnesses were healed, which consumed a lot of energy. It was only because Zero gritted his teeth and persisted throughout the process that this miracle could be maintained. Unknowingly, Zero wondered the Eddy armor had become a life-size Ultraman, and his life began to burn unconsciously, and it burned rapidly at a speed of 200 years per second. During this process, Zero was in great pain, and even remembered the old Jonathan's advice to him. This is what I can do now, Father. Clerk smiled with satisfaction when he noticed that every citizen had a defensive stance, and that there were citizens who were injured but fought but now had light on their bodies. Well done. Clerk was no longer afraid of the citizens because they were protected. He was full of the belief that he wanted to defeat Zod, and his strength was invisibly increased. A terrible heavy punch hit Zod's left face. With a cracking sound, Clerk smashed Zod's cheekbone with one punch, and then punched Zod's ribs again, several ribs piercing his heart, and then an uppercut smashed Zod's jawbone. In Zod's eyes, Clerk's skills were crude, but his strength and speed were too terrifying, so he had no power to fight back and could only passively take the beating. After a series of explosive punches, Clerk beat Zod into a park that was 100 hectares larger than Carlton Riverside Park. After smashing countless trees, Zod lay in a big pit with a blur vision, and the last scene he saw was Clerk flying towards him. Boom. Clerk punched down. The extremely crude action contained infinite power, and just one punch exploded with energy more terrifying than an earthquake. The park with a total area of 400 hectares was directly destroyed by this punch, and Zod also fainted under the terrifying power of this blow. Noticing that Clerk defeated Zod, Zero realized that the battle was over. With a relieved smile on his face, he automatically turned back to human form, and then his eyes went black and fell to the ground. Bang! A sonic boom sounded in the distance, and Clerk, wearing a red and blue battlesuit, flew towards Zero. He gently held Zero and then slowly flew to the ground. Slowly landing on the ground, a large number of citizens gathered here at some point. They were all citizens who were saved by Zero, and when they saw Zero who was unconscious, they couldn't help but feel grateful and ashamed. Without any movement, he just cast his eyes at Zero and Clerk, and these eyes contained a lot of emotions similar to gratitude. "It's almost done, Clerk." Zero barely made a sound and said to Clerk, "Fly higher, I'm going to ask Oil to take me back to the ultralight. Have a good rest, I'll take those compatriots back to the Fortress of Solitude and then lock them up in the Phantom Zone. Maybe one day in the future, they will rebuild Krypton with me," Clerk said with relief. Before leaving, Zero reminded Clerk, "I used kryptonite weapons on those 2 Kryptonian warriors, you should be careful. There is technology on this battlesuit that can help me isolate kryptonite radiation, don't worry." Clerk understood Zero's behavior of using kryptonite weapons. After all, Zero was not the first one. As for the people Clerk knew who had kryptonite weapons, Zero was not even in the top 10. "Okay, I'll go back first." After responding to Clerk, Zero was teleported back to the ultralight. After Zero returned to the ultralight, Clerk found Ek and Fura, who were still alive, and took them back to the Fortress of Solitude with Zod. After removing the kryptonite ice axes from Ek and Fura, Clerk opened the portal to the Phantom Zone and threw them and Zod into the Phantom Zone. As the surviving Kryptonians were locked up in the Phantom Zone, the battle was over. But it will take time to heal the losses of Metropolis, but the citizens of Metropolis have long been accustomed to all this and regard it as daily life. In the ultralight, Oil helped Zero remove the Eddie armor, used a life support machine to help Zero recover, and provided him with high concentrations of radon and defalator rays, allowing Zero to recover quickly. After 48 hours, Zero finally recovered to his best condition. He left the life support machine, blinking his emerald eyes, feeling his body as if it were reborn. The first thing he did when he recovered was to ask Oil what happened during this period. "Oil, what happened in Metropolis during the time I was unconscious?" After the incident, Earth Metropolis after that battle, the 2 parks in Metropolis, which together covered an area of 700 hectares, were directly scrapped, and countless other buildings were damaged in the fight between Clerk and Zod. However, with Jello burning his life to save people, the casualties in Metropolis were very small. According to MCPD statistics, only a dozen gangsters who wanted to take advantage of the chaos drop died in this incident. As for the damage to buildings and economic losses, the construction companies and insurance companies under the Wayne Group and Lex Group are very happy to bear them. The various losses are much lower than those in the original timeline. There is even an employee of the Wayne Group's network technology department named Wolaskiv who spontaneously set up a website for Ultraman and regarded this website as an Ultraman fan website. It seems that the traffic is not low. Compared to the original world line, it's a lot better, Jello said, touching his chin, and then he checked the current news about Superman and found that the situation was not bad. Of course, there are haters of Superman. There are many people who deliberately discredit others for popularity and money these days. The overall trend is still good. After understanding these aspects, Jello turned to Oil and asked, "What about the Black Zero that I blew up? How is the wreckage?" "According to your original instructions, I sent a drone to recover some of the wreckage." Oil's answer made Jello's eyes light up. "Oil, take it out and show me which part of the wreckage is it." "The wreckage of the power part, the same series of engines as the small spacecraft that sent you back." As he spoke, Oil brought the wreckage of the Phantom engine to Jello. Although the appearance is a little charred, and even many places are damaged, as long as you scan it, you can still extract some usable technology. The spacecraft transformed from the lifeboat was scrapped after it fell to the Earth and no technology could be extracted. Now that part of the Phantom engine has been recovered, how can Jello not be happy? Start the analysis immediately. After the analysis is completed, start to modify the Phantom engine. It would be best if it can be added to the flight system. Jello told Oil his idea. At present, the flight systems used by Ultra Armor all use electromagnetic acceleration and vector jet. As the intensity of the battle increases, Zero feels that this is a bit insufficient. The Phantom engine, which accelerates interstellar navigation by distorting the curvature of space-time, is a very good choice. In fact, it is mainly because Zero cannot use superluminal flight now, and although his own flight ability is flexible, the maximum speed is not high enough, otherwise there is no need to install a flight system on the armor. Okay, Zero. After receiving the order, Oi mobilized resources and started the analysis work. As one of the highest manifestations of Kryptonian technology, the Phantom engine still has a lot of work to do. Even Oi will take some time to complete the analysis. Send me back to the apartment, if the apartment is not broken, and, Lina, have you sent it back? Zero stretched his body. He lay down for a long time, which made him feel like his body was rusting. Hearing Zero talking, Oi immediately replied, your apartment is far away from the battle area and has not been severely damaged. After you and Mr. Claire dealt with all the Kryptonians, I sent Miss Lina back. I will start the transmission for you now. As soon as Oi finished speaking, a blue light enveloped Zero, and the next second, Zero appeared in his apartment. Returning to the apartment where he had not lived for a while, Zero took a deep breath, then turned on his super hearing and searched for Lina according to the heartbeat frequency he remembered. After a moment, Zero found that Lina's heartbeat appeared on the rooftop of the apartment building. Zero, who was somewhat puzzled as to why Lina went to the rooftop, followed the sound and looked around. Finally, Zero found Lina on the edge of the rooftop. She was sitting in a smart wheelchair, and the strong wind on the rooftop blew through her golden hair from time to time. Walking to Lina's side, leaning against the low wall of the rooftop, Jello asked Lina, are you thinking about life? Hearing Jello's voice, Lina did not feel confused. She did not think it was surprising that Jello found her. She looked at Jello, whose eyes had turned emerald, and said, it's about the same. After so many ups and downs, you always have to sort out your mood. Also, your eyes and highlights are very beautiful. Did you wear contact lenses and dye your hair? Contact lenses. Highlights? Jello hesitated for a moment. He didn't know that the color of his eyes and hair had changed. Looking at Jello's hesitant look, Lina took out a mirror from the compartment of the smart wheelchair and said, don't you know about the color of your hair and eyes? Taking Lina's mirror, Jello looked at his current appearance. The pupils that were originally pure black turned into emerald. As for the white hair, Jello had consumed his vitality when he became a giant of light, causing part of his hair to turn white. However, after absorbing a lot of high-quality energy, his hair turned back to black. But now this situation has happened again, which makes Zero very strange. When he was fighting with the Kryptonian warriors, the life he burned was obviously not as much as when he first became the giant of light. But why did he still have white hair after absorbing a lot of radon into phthalate rays after the battle? Is this the irreversible damage that Oi said? Thinking about it, Zero planned to find an opportunity to do a comprehensive physical examination. But there was one thing in his heart that Zero had to say. It looks pretty good like this. Zero said narcissistically, touching his chin, and then returned the mirror to Lina. Lina took the mirror and smiled, it looks more fashionable, but it would be very nice if the hair was all white. At this time, Jello remembered the unlimited motorcycle race, so he asked Lina, how is the race going? How was Shadow Moon? You were talking about the race. The next stop is Los Angeles. I have adjusted Shadow Moon to its best condition. You can drive it for a lap at any time. Los Angeles? Hearing this, Jello frowned, because he remembered that this place seemed to hide a big secret, but he didn't show any abnormality, just asked indirectly. What about problems such as accommodation and car maintenance? The organizer Wayne Group will bear it, and we are still the first place. Lina replied. Wayne Group will bear it. Hearing this, Jello frowned even more tightly, especially after thinking of the figure of a certain old bat. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novel, as there you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Stop. Los Angeles. On the rooftop of the apartment building in Metropolis, Lina noticed that Jello's face looked a little strange, so she asked. Jello, are you worried about something? Nothing. Jello shook his head and glanced at Lina and said, I just always feel that pie in the sky will not fall. Hearing this, Lina laughed and said, why? The Wayne Group is so big and powerful, can it still care about our little secrets? The Wayne Group will not, but that old bat will, Jello thought silently, and then contacted Oi and asked Oi to send the bank card over. After handing the card to Lina, Jello said, there should be a lot of money in this card. After leaving Metropolis, we should try to use less things provided by the Wayne Group. In fact, when Lena said that she wanted to cooperate with the Wayne Group, Jello was a little afraid of Batman. The reason is nothing else, it is simply that Batman himself is too buggy. He is obviously just a human, but he can repeatedly solve things that superhumans cannot deal with, and he can also lead the Justice League, who is at a disadvantage, to a Jedi comeback. He is a very reliable teammate. However, due to his mental state, Batman is more than just a reliable teammate. Sometimes, Batman is the most formidable opponent. He can lead the Justice League to a comeback, or he can destroy the Justice League on his own. This makes Jello very reluctant to approach Batman, or even approach the Wayne Group. Since you said so, let's stay in another hotel. Lena took the bank card and replied, Jello, do you have any concerns about the Wayne Group? Jello certainly would not tell Lena that there was an old bat that was about to go crazy in Gotham, so he could only say indirectly. The Wayne Group started in Gotham and is large in scale. From this aspect, it is good to cooperate with the Wayne Group, but the Wayne Group is in Gotham, where there are all kinds of people. What if that woman takes this opportunity to insert her hand? I can deal with thousands of enemies, but I am not good at this aspect. That's what you were talking about. Lena suddenly realized, and then said, I have also thought about it these days. The Wayne Group and Quinn are indeed large in scale, but the other party may not be interested in our small business, so I am considering another emerging company. Jello asked, which one are you talking about? Palm Technology. Lena answered, and then expressed her idea of choosing Palmer. I have carefully checked their company information. This company is very young. CEO Raymond Palmer is also a good man in various news reports. It must be easier to deal with than Wayne or Quinn. As long as it is not Wayne Group, Jello thought silently and replied, it's fine as long as it can be successful. I will handle other matters. Okay. After responding to Jello, Lena continued to look at the damaged Metropolis and sighed, it's like a dream. Metropolis has experienced another incident, but I feel that it is a little unreal. Jello was speechless. What do you think? How will we develop after leaving Metropolis? Looking at Jello, who was a little embarrassed, Lena smiled quietly, and then said, Jello, what do you think of National City? National City? Jello hesitated for a moment. He only remembered that there was his cousin and a Catco International media there. Compared with the development of Metropolis, National City is a little worse, but it is safer, at least that was the case before his cousin debuted. After carefully thinking about the pros and cons, Jello nodded and said to Lena, very good, then I will also choose a university in National City. Then I recommend you to go to Darknall Institute of Technology. Their academic ability is very strong. In recent years, they have invited top scholars like Professor Avia who have been researching in the field of nano for many years. After hearing Jello's idea, Lena made a timely suggestion. In this suggestion, Jello heard a familiar name, Avia. If Jello remembered correctly, he seemed to be the one who developed the Amoja robot. Speaking of the Amoja robot, Jello remembered how powerful this thing was. The ability of Amoja is very simple, which is to copy all the superpowers seen, and it can also continue to evolve in the process. It is one of the black technologies in the DC world. Professor Avia. I have read the papers he wrote, and it is quite inspiring to me. Jello replied. Lena guessed something and said without reservation, that's great. You can choose the nanotechnology major at Dartnall Institute of Technology. If you're lucky, you'll have the opportunity to meet Professor Avia every week. Is that so? Hearing this, Jello thought about how to meet Professor Avia. It was very cost-effective to meet such a top scholar, whether for knowledge, technology, or to prevent Professor Avia from going astray. As long as it succeeds, it will definitely be worth it. Well, it's too far to talk about this now. Even if you want to go, you have to wait until August to go to Darknall Institute of Technology. Lena waved her hand and said, before that, let's win the motorcycle race. Only if we win the 50 million, we will have the capital to start a business. Jello replied, you're right, then I will leave first. Yeah. Lena looked at Jello and replied softly. She looked at Jello's hair again, covered her mouth and smiled, but your hair is indeed a bit too trendy now. It will be much better if you dye it all white or dye it all black. Really? Then I will dye it all black, and get used to it. Hearing this, Jello subconsciously grabbed his hair, thinking that this white highlights are indeed not suitable for him, and planned to return to the ultralight to change his hair color back. After that, Jello and Lena exchanged some politeness, discussed future plans, and then the two said goodbye to each other. Let's do this for now. I'm going to organize the plan and make the operation steps more detailed. Also, we'll leave for Los Angeles on time the day after tomorrow," Lina said while tapping the armrest of the wheelchair with her fingers. "Okay." After silently engraving everything he needed to remember in his mind, Jello said goodbye to Lina and returned to his room. As soon as he returned to the room, Jello asked Oya to send him back to the ultralight and used the inspection equipment to perform a full body scan on himself. About half an hour later, Jello saw his detailed full body examination report. His fingers kept sliding across the holographic interface floating in the air, and one item of physical data after another passed through Jello's fingertips. Every time he saw a piece of data, Jello's face would change. Until he finished reading all the reports, his face became extremely strange. "This change is actually Schrodinger's Ultraman, Earth Metropolis in the ultralight." Zero looked at his body data and fell into deep thought. "This is too normal." Zero looked at all the data in disbelief. Every piece of data was extremely normal, so normal that it was exactly the same as that of an ordinary human. It seemed that after the battle with the Kryptonians, Zero turned back into an ordinary human, and the Ultra Factor, Alpha Energy, and Ultra Thought all disappeared from his body. But he clearly felt that the power was still in his body, and even became a little stronger. Zero, who couldn't believe the data, took some cell tissues from himself and sent them into the detection instrument, but the final test results made him even more confused. Ultra Factor concentration 0% Earth human similarity 99.5% very strange data. When Zero saw this data, his eyes were bigger than a bell, and he even screamed directly. "This is impossible. Since I had the Ultra Factor in my body, it must be detected by the instrument." At this time, Oya noticed Jello's loud call, and his voice appeared in Jello's ear, and he asked kindly, "Jello, do you need any help?" "Oya, the Ultra Factor in my body seems to have disappeared." Jello's mood was very complicated, and he almost didn't know how to tell Oya. "Impossible," Oya said decisively. "You are still in the Zero sequence in the authority of the ultralight, and you have absolute control over the entire ultralight. The person who starts the ultralight must have the power of Ultraman, so it is impossible for you who can still enter the ultralight to not have the power of Ultraman." "Then why can't the instrument detect my Ultra Factor?" Jello asked again. Oya's words made Jello feel a little better, at least there was a comfort. "Maybe you caused some unknown changes in the Ultra Factor during the battle. Or is there some difference in rules between this universe and the universe with a large number of Ultramen, which caused some changes in you living in this universe?" Oya used his powerful computing ability to draw some conclusions and relayed them all to Jello. Hearing Oya's words, Jello began to feel the energy in his body. As he went deeper and believed, a huge force continued to flow out. Jello's whole body was covered with a layer of streamer, his eyes seemed to be covered with two goose eggs, some lines appeared on his skin, and a blue ball appeared on his chest. Then, Jello opened his eyes, looked at the palms of his hands, and then clenched them suddenly. A shockwave burst out with him as the core and blew away many surrounding equipment. "It's a very strong power. Although my grasp of Ultraman's skills is not deep due to my age, even if I just rely on instinct, I can easily evaporate a destroyer. If I combine it with the resonance of the energy cores of various weapons in the armor, I will become stronger." Feeling the power that has never left him, Jello's mouth kept rising, and then he slowly withdrew his power. After stimulating the energy, Jello understood why that previous situation occurred. Because he usually had the habit of suppressing his superpowers, the Ultra Factor received Jello's wish and produced a new change. As long as Jello believed, he would be a pure human being, and no instrument could detect his problem. No matter how those guys on Earth with black technology checked and stole Jello's cells, in the end, they could only get an ordinary human clone, and the fact that Jello is a normal human. He can be called Schrodinger's Ultraman. The probability of whether he is Ultraman is 50-50, and Jello can also influence this probability. In normal times, those powers are not completely disappeared, but stored in a high-dimensional space generated only by Jello. This high-dimensional space is very unique and does not belong to any dimension in the normal multi-dimensional space. It is very difficult to find. Due to its special nature, Jello speculates that at least the real body of a single universe-level strongman must come to find this high-dimensional space. But the previous way of becoming stronger is still useful to Jello, which is where Jello is currently cheating the most. As soon as he thought of that high-dimensional space, an idea came to Jello's mind. He touched his chin and narrowed his eyes slightly. If the actual size of that high-dimensional space is determined by my own energy intensity, does that mean I can condense another body in this high-dimensional space? With the idea, Jello immediately started to act. He established a mathematical model, went through several calculations, and finally came to a conclusion: his energy was not enough. The speed of absorbing redundant effect to increase the upper limit is too slow and takes a long time. The fastest way is actually through extreme battles again and again. Once Jello's energy limit is increased, in addition to storing the giant body in the high-dimensional space, he can also transfer the battlefield to that high-dimensional space through phase transfer fluctuations. When fighting in the high-dimensional space, Jello can strengthen himself while weakening his opponent. Thinking of this, Jello directly called his high-dimensional space metafield. Too much alike, too much alike. Jello covered his face with his right hand, and under his palm was a face that could no longer suppress a smile. There was no way this metafield that had not yet fully formed brought Jello too much of a surprise. But Jello didn't stay happy for too long. Although the development prospects of his pseudo-metafield were very good, even if he forced it open now, the area was not as large as the hopscotch area drawn by the children on the street. And the appearance of the emerald eyes was also because Jello had pushed his ultra factor development to the current level. It was a symbol that in a few days, he could develop a superpower similar to thermal vision. As for the white hair, he could make up for it by absorbing energy for 2 more days. Afterwards, Jello once again devoted himself to the days of hard battle with Leo's projection, but now his energy intensity was increased, and Leo's projection's energy intensity had to increase as well. A few days later, Los Angeles swooshed Jello, driving the motorcycle Shadow Moon, crossed the finish line and undoubtedly became the champion of the second stop. Too lazy to accept interviews, he took the motorcycle to avoid the media and returned to the hotel he had booked in advance. Throwing his helmet onto the other bed, Zero was about to return to the ultralight, but Lina knocked on the door. Knock knock knock, can I come in? The door is unlocked, Zero replied. Then, Lina entered the room in a smart wheelchair. From her expression, it can be seen that she has become more sunny recently. She took out a letter from her pocket and said to Zero, "The location of the next game has been decided, it's Gotham." "Okay, what?" "Gotham." Before he could finish his words, Zero's eyes widened. Lux Piano Bar, Earth Los Angeles. When Jello heard the word Gotham, he felt his head buzz in. As a time traveler, Jello knew too well how terrible Gotham was. Even if a certain old bat was excluded, Gotham still had many secrets. Not to mention the Court of Owls lurking in the dark, there might be a vampire Dracula buried in Gotham Cemetery, and a zombie that can wrestle with Superman. And all of the above are just the tip of the iceberg of Gotham. Gotham is definitely among the top 3 most dangerous places in the universe. Seeing Jello's slightly hesitant and horrified look, Lina was a little confused. She didn't know Gotham very well, so she just asked in confusion, "What's wrong, Jello? Is there something wrong with Gotham?" "Yes." After a moment, Jello calmed down and replied, "You are just an ordinary person, so you can't find out how terrible that place is. I tell you now that you probably don't understand, but you will understand it later." "Is that so?" Lina frowned slightly. Although many players have proposed to change the venue, the organizer is very determined that the final venue can only be Gotham. After hearing what Lina said, Jello probably understood that it was an old bat behind this. But using Jello's thinking to speculate about the old bat was obviously embarrassing Jello. The truth of the matter can only be known after the last game. Too lazy to think about what the old bat was thinking, Jello coughed twice and asked Lina about the envelope. "What about this envelope, Lina? Who gave it to you?" "When I went to the restaurant for breakfast this morning, a waiter put it next to me and asked me to give it to you." As she spoke, Lina handed the envelope to Jello. Listening to Lina's words, Jello was very confused. He took the envelope and scanned it with his telekinesis. After finding that there was no problem, he carefully opened it. After the envelope was opened, Jello took out an invitation from it. The invitation was a piece of black hard paper, covered with a layer of gold on the surface, and a circle of diamonds on the edge. It looked very luxurious, and there was a sentence written on it in vermilion paint. "Welcome to Lux to meet me, Lucifer Morningstar." In an instant, Jello's pupils seemed to have an earthquake, and the whole person was directly fixed in place. Looking at Zero, who seemed to be frozen in time, Lina, who had no idea what was going on, frowned, and quickly stretched out her hand and waved in front of Zero, and said worriedly, "Are you okay, Zero?" "Nothing." Zero, who reacted, quickly shook his head, indicating that he was fine. However, Zero's heart was beating faster than anyone else. Why would I be targeted by such a big guy even if there was no major incident? "Hey." Jello Kent, who was still in his infancy, kept wailing in his heart, but even if he entered the ultimate form, he might not be the opponent of this big guy. Since Zero had read a certain amount of comics in his previous life, he certainly knew the name of Lucifer Morningstar. As far as Zero knew, Lucifer Morningstar was the son of God who created the DC Universe. The DC Universe here does not refer to a single universe, or a multiverse, but an omnipotent universe, and may even be the creator of the illusory super-time stream. Such a big guy is so terrible that everything in the DC Universe cannot escape his control. As the biological son of God, even if Lucifer Morningstar expressed his desire to rebel against his elegant father, he still possessed at least half of God's power. With Lucifer's power, even Darkseid might not be able to compete with Lucifer. Suppressing his worries, Jello gently put the invitation aside, then looked at Lina and said, "It's nothing, Lina, just a little thing." Although she knew what Jello was afraid of, Lina did not expose him, but just said silently, "Since someone invited you, then go, remember to dress formally." "Okay, thank you for your reminder." After personally sending Lina to the door, Jello immediately took a big breath without any image, as if he was taking the next breath of air as his last breath of life. Jello still has a set of formal clothes. After the game, Wayne Group will hold a banquet. In order to attend the banquet, Lina took the card to buy Jello a suit as a formal dress. Now it seems that it is just the right clothes to wear when going to Lux. After putting on the black suit that was fairly well made, Jello adjusted his tie and finally cleaned his shoes, making him look more mature. Under great psychological pressure, Jello came to the hotel entrance and called a taxi. In the evening, after getting off the car, stepping on the ground, and taking out the invitation from his pocket, Jello looked at the Lux Latin sign in the distance, and then stepped in with a very nervous mood. As soon as he stepped into the Lux piano bar, Jello heard very pleasant piano music, but with Jello's musical literacy, he obviously couldn't tell which song it was, he just knew it was very nice. The layout of the store is very simple, but the area is very large, especially in Los Angeles, where every inch of land is valuable. A retro bar of this size makes the owner look more financially wealthy. Coming back to his senses from the piano music, Jello couldn't help but look at the blonde man who was playing the piano. The man was wearing a black suit with a white napkin stuck in his collar and a red tie as red as blood. He was graceful and his fingers played the piano naturally. Every time he played, a pleasant sound was emitted. And the man's face, Jello thought he was already very handsome, but when he saw the man's face, he felt ashamed. He was so handsome that he seemed to not belong to this world. Ding! The last accent fell, and the man stood up from the piano chair. He smiled and looked at Jello, whose calves were trembling, and said, "Don't worry, little guy, I have no ill will towards you. If I had any ill will, even if you didn't come, I could make you disappear without anyone noticing." Hearing this, Jello became a little bolder, but he still didn't dare to say too much, for fear that Lucifer would take his life. Possessing a part of the power of omniscience and omnipotence, Lucifer certainly knew what Jello was thinking. He looked at Jello's appearance and laughed. "Then let's have a drink first. It's my treat." Lucifer snapped his fingers and the surrounding scene changed. Finally, Jello found himself standing in front of a bar. Lucifer was already sitting on a chair with 2 martinis in front of him. He motioned Jello to come over and sit down. "Come on, little guy." Lucifer Morningstar, Earth Los Angeles Lux Piano Bar. In front of the bar without a bartender, Lucifer was calling Jello. Without hiding his uneasy mood, Jello walked to the bar, carefully sat on the chair, and then sat up. Looking at Jello who was so uneasy, Lucifer's smile became even bigger. "Little guy, I know what you were afraid of. Believe me, I, Lucifer Morningstar, will not deceive you." Hearing this, Jello thought carefully. Indeed, if Lucifer wanted to do it, even if he escaped from the universe, he could not escape Lucifer. In this case, there was no need to be so restrained. "Well, thank you for your hospitality, Mr. Lucifer," Jello said very politely. "Interesting." Lucifer suddenly said a word, and then continued, "Ordinary angels don't have this kind of light on you. It's very special. Although it's not the only one, it really attracts me." Lucifer's words made Jello confused. What is special, what is not the only one, and what is really attractive made Jello's forehead full of black lines. Lucifer, who knew what Jello was thinking, took a sip of the martini. The wine flowed down his throat. This being who possessed terrible power seemed to enjoy this seemingly mortal creation. After taking a sip of the martini, Lucifer continued, "You really don't know much now, even less than your parents, but I believe that as fate develops, you'll know everything about you. Also, drink it, this is a rare good wine." Since the famous Lord of Hell said so, Jello did not refuse. He naturally picked up the wine glass and took a small sip. As soon as the martini entered his mouth, Jello felt very hot in his mouth. This was definitely not an ordinary martini. In an instant, Jello's face changed drastically. He felt as if he had swallowed a nuclear reactor in his mouth, so he quickly used ultra energy to absorb and convert it to dissolve this terrifying power. Tip unconsciously, Jello's back was wet with sweat, and even his hair was tangled together because of excessive sweat. When Jello came back to his senses, he felt that his energy had increased a lot in an instant, equivalent to absorbing a whole year of defalite and high concentration radon. He seemed to have been reborn. Looking at the martini that was still a lot left, Jello's eyes briefly became hot, but it only lasted less than 1/1000th of a microsecond. A small sip could make him like this. What would happen if he continued to drink? Looking at Jello, who could restrain his desire for powerful power, Lucifer was very satisfied. He clapped his hands and said, "You can restrain your greed. Not bad. I admire you, little guy. You're enthusiastic but calm, greedy but restrained, and passionate but decisive. Very good. Of course, it's just very good. Thank you for your compliment, Mr. Lucifer. I wonder what you called me for." Without using superpowers to dissolve the embarrassment, Jello responded to Lucifer with his most polite voice and mood. After taking another sip of martini, Lucifer said to Jello, "I just want to meet you, a little guy who doesn't belong to this multiverse." Jello was not surprised that Lucifer knew his origins. The famous Lucifer Morningstar should know such things. The famous Lucifer Morningstar. Lucifer could hear Jello's inner voice. He seemed very satisfied with this title. He immediately said happily, "I like you calling me this. Next, I will give you half a minute to ask questions. As long as it does not affect your interesting future, I will say it." Hearing this, Jello's brain worked quickly. Lucifer Morningstar knew his future, there was no doubt about it, but this question time could not include his future. He was like an audience who knew the script a long time ago, or even a director, but he did not mean to spoil it. After a moment, Jello came up with a question that he couldn't answer. "Respected Mr. Lucifer, I want to know how higher being's status will be able to discover the high-dimensional space I created." A fair question. Lucifer hummed softly, and then answered Jello. "According to your understanding, I'm afraid it will take a multiverse-level being to see through it. Of course, this is based on the fact that you are still as weak as you are now. With your understanding and the particularity of the high-dimensional space, you only need to have the strength of a single universe to perfectly avoid this problem." After the voice fell, Jello felt a little happy in his heart. The pseudo-meta field is the most important skill he has mastered at present. Lucifer has the characteristics of half omniscience and omnipotence, and Jello is really too different from him to know that other beings may not be able to see through the meta field. Okay, the happy time is over. Lucifer clapped his palms to pull Jello out of the afterglow of happiness, and then said to Jello in a mysterious tone, "The time I gave you for questions is over. Now, it's time for me to ask you questions." "You want to ask me?" Jello was a little panicked. He showed a helpless expression and said to Lucifer, "But with your supreme power, how could you not know about me?" Ha ha ha. Lucifer suddenly laughed, then shook his head, and then said to Jello, "I do have some omniscient power, and I even know what kind of existence I am. However, sometimes knowing too much is not fun. So, next, I will ask you a question. Before you answer it, the time of the entire multiverse will be frozen, and I will not use any ability to spy on your mind. You just need to give me an answer." After speaking, Jello clenched his fists, his lips slightly raised, and then said firmly, "Okay, just ask." "I like your decisive character." Lucifer smiled slightly, then snapped his fingers, and the time of the entire multiverse was frozen by him. At this moment, whether it was the sun of tomorrow flying over Metropolis, or the Dark Knight fighting crime in Gotham, or everything else, Lucifer temporarily froze everything in his mind. Even the invasion of other universes by the Dark Lords of higher dimensions was stopped by Lucifer with a single call, but Jello couldn't hear everything because he was concentrating on listening to Lucifer's questions. "Okay, listen to my question, little guy. If you think from your perspective, how can I resist the Supreme Being, my father? Zingerio's answer. The multiverse frozen in time in the Lux Piano Bar in Los Angeles, Earth. Jello, who had listened to Lucifer's question word for word, felt his brain tremble. This question was like a life-threatening question. Jello was shocked, and every brain cell began to work, thinking about how to answer this question. Lucifer actually has little to do with the devil in the Bible who directly fights with God, but as far as Jello knows, Lucifer likes the description of the one who likes to be a troll in the Bible. Very rebellious. Thinking of this, Jello's thoughts suddenly became clear. That's right, no matter what Lucifer is doing, he is trying to rebel against his Supreme Father. And as far as Jello knows, that Supreme Being loves the DC Universe very much. Thinking of this, Jello had an answer in his mind, so he plucked up the courage to say to Lucifer, "Dear Mr. Lucifer, I think I have the answer." "Oh? Really? Then tell me, there will be a reward if you answer well." Lucifer looked at Jello with a cynical look. "Okay, I'll tell you then." Jello bit his teeth hard, and then he used all his courage to tell Lucifer what he thought. "As far as I know, your father knows everything you do, so when you deliberately rebel against him, you can't really rebel. In that case, why don't you do what he knows to do? Moreover, I know that your father loves this universe very much. What if you'll love everything in this universe more than he does?" Hearing this, all the expressions on Lucifer's face disappeared instantly, and Jello's heart rose to his throat. Boom, 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 boom. Jello seemed to hear his own heartbeat. The atmosphere in front of the bar was extremely stagnant, and because time was stopped, Jello couldn't tell how long it had been, which made him feel extremely tormented. It seemed like a century had passed. Lucifer suddenly stared at Jello, his lips moving up and down, and he slowly said, "Prove that I love all this more than he does. You're such a clever little ghost." Although when I asked you this question and got the answer from you, it was all within his expectations, I have to admit that I like this answer very much, little guy. Nothing else, I just like it. Lucifer's words were ambiguous, and Jello couldn't tell what he was thinking. He just continued to wait for Lucifer to finish his words. "Indeed, I want to resist him, but everything I do cannot escape him. I am very satisfied with your idea." As Lucifer finished his words, Jello felt that he had survived a disaster. Reaching out and patting Jello's shoulder, Lucifer smiled and said to Jello, "I am very satisfied with your answer, little guy, so you deserve a reward." As soon as the voice fell, Lucifer took out a ball of light from his suit pocket and motioned Jello to catch it. Reaching out his hands and holding the ball of light, Jello felt as if all the musical instruments he knew appeared in his mind. Among the very scarce musical instruments, a small wind instrument gradually became clear. Not long after, the ball of light in Jello's hand slowly turned into a harmonica. The body of the instrument was made of metal and solid wood, and it looked a bit old. A harmonica. With your musical knowledge, you can still present such an instrument. Lucifer looked at Jello meaningfully. After taking a look at the harmonica in his hand, Jello turned his gaze to Lucifer and asked, "What is this?" Supporting his head with the back of his right hand, Lucifer smiled and said, "It can be regarded as a small gift from the Lord of Hell. However, this thing will not tell others that you are the Lord of Hell, Lucifer. You still need to study the specific function yourself." Jello put away the harmonica and planned to go back to learn 2 songs to see if he could find out some secrets. Seeing Jello was about to leave, Lucifer pushed the glass of martini that Jello had just drunk in front of Jello, and then said, "This glass of wine is my treat. Next, I will restore the flow of time, and how much you can drink before dawn is up to you." As soon as the voice fell, Lucifer snapped his fingers, and after a snap sound, the time of the multiverse resumed flowing. "Thank you for your hospitality." After replying to Lucifer, Jello began to drink the glass of martini little by little. The burning energy continued to flow into Jello's body. Every sip was a great test. Jello now had no way to finish the martini that the Lord of Hell had treated him to. Until dawn, the sky outside the Lux Piano Bar turned pale, and Jello also put the remaining 1/5 of the martini on the table and did not touch it again. Jello stood up without any greed, then bowed slightly to Lucifer. Jello, who had never been so energetic, said to Lucifer, "Thank you for your hospitality, Mr. Lucifer. Have a good time on the way. I won't see you off, little guy." Lucifer replied, and then waved his hand, and the scene returned to the previous state. The doors also opened, and a ray of sunlight poured into the Lux Piano Bar. After bidding farewell to Lucifer, Jello left the Lux Piano Bar. After walking back to the hotel, Jello met Lina in the corridor. Looking at Jello, who had not returned all night but looked very energetic, Lena smiled lightly and said, "It seems that you had a great time in the Lux Piano Bar last night, Jello." "Well, I had a great time," Jello replied. "Like those little stars who were very frustrated before entering, but became famous after coming out?" Lena asked again. Hearing this, Jello paused and asked in confusion, "Have you ever been to Lux Piano Bar?" "I just went to collect some rumors about Lux." Lena supported her left face with her white and tender palm and said to Jello, "There is one more thing. The time for the competition in Gotham has been determined. According to the requirements of the organizer, all contestants must arrive in Gotham before the day after tomorrow. So rushed. Many people can't react, whether it's vehicle maintenance or other things." Jello frowned. "But Wayne Group has added another 10 million bonus." Lena continued to support her face with her hands and said, "You know, in the eyes of some people, it is the biggest motivation." Jello nodded and said, "I understand. Then when do we set off?" "In the afternoon. Arrive a little earlier. I want to adjust the state of Shadow Moon for you," Lena replied. Gotham City, which has not been sunny for a few days, is as usual. The dark clouds seem to be pressing down at any time, and only silver-white lightning will pass through the dark clouds, bringing a trace of light. Boom boom thunder rumbled, and soon, heavy rain poured down. In a blink of an eye, thunder and rain intertwined, composing a symphony from hell. Looking at the rain outside the window, Jello asked a question. "Can we really compete tomorrow in this weather?" The organizer just replied to me. Lena drove the smart wheelchair to Jello and said helplessly, "According to Mr. Wayne, the competition time will not be changed. Gotham, Earth Gotham boom boom today is a thunderstorm with heavy rain, but even in such weather, there are still many workers unloading cargo at the Gotham port. From time to time, there are workers complaining about why the cargo is so heavy during this period, like a shell. It was not until the forklift moved the last container that all the workers left the dock one by one. As for where these containers will go, the workers don't care, they only care whether their dinner will be taken away. The truck loaded with containers has gone through twists and turns all the way, and finally stopped at a place that only a few people in Gotham know. Through the surveillance, I watched the mercenaries wearing red combat uniforms and gas masks on their faces carrying weapons, as well as the unmanned tanks and heavy Cobra tanks that were gradually assembled. He wore a tattered cloak, a strange rag mask on his face, and many containers and liquid tubes were hung on his body. One hand was also covered with a pair of claw-shaped syringes, and 5 sharp needles were shining in the dim light. The madman who used to be a university psychology professor and is now called Scarecrow said to the man in the shadow, "I admit that your army is very well trained. Our target is that guy. How can we succeed without a well-trained army?" The mysterious man hiding in the shadow replied unhappily, "You're right. I like to cooperate with you," Scarecrow said sinisterly, and set his sights on the nutrition cabin that was faintly visible in the dimness. "Moreover, this time, we have more chips and will not fail like before. I'm not lazy, argue, Professor Jonathan Crane." The mysterious man walked out of the shadow slowly. His 200 pounds weight and a set of equipment made the floor creak. Feeling a familiar sense of oppression, Scarecrow replied calmly, "I know this very well, Arkham Knight." "You'd better be honest, Scarecrow." The mysterious man called Arkham Knight did not seem to trust Scarecrow. "I will," Scarecrow replied faintly. The next day, Gotham the heavy rain was still falling, with no sign of stopping, but the unlimited motorcycle road race organized by the Wayne Group would not stop because of this. Boom 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 13 motorcycles kept roaring, and white gas sprayed out from the exhaust pipes. The rain hit Jello's helmet, making his vision a little blurry. However, this could not stop Jello's pace of winning the championship. Swoosh! Not long after, Jello drove Shadow Moon across the finish line and won the championship without any surprise. Under the awning set up by the Wayne Group, an interview was being held, but Jello didn't like this scene and wanted to avoid it, but was blocked by a familiar figure. Looking at the black-haired woman who was about the same height as him, Jello said with a headache, "Are you the private photographer in Metropolis? Can I ask you a few questions, Mr. Jello?" Donna Troy said to Jello with the camera protected by a transparent waterproof plastic sheet in her hand. "Ask," Jello said helplessly. The person in front of him was different from other reporters. He had to answer a few of her questions casually. In this way, he barely got away and returned to the hotel. Back in the warm hotel, the TV was still playing the replay of the unlimited road race. When Jello came back, it was just the scene of him crossing the finish line, and Lina was also very happy at this time. 3 days later, we will get our prize money. Lina said happily, there is also a banquet in the evening. How about we go together? Obviously there was a good thing, but Jello always felt a little flustered for some reason, but he just couldn't say it, so he could only say casually, if everything goes well, let's go together. After all, this is Gotham. As if the words came true, the TV that was just playing the replay of the unlimited road race suddenly appeared with a snowflake. Not only this TV, but all the monitors connected to the cable broadcast in Gotham City also had this situation. Then, a scarecrow with rags on his head and face appeared on the TV screen, and a surveillance screen appeared with the scarecrow. The incident in the surveillance video seemed to happen in a restaurant. A police officer approached a customer who seemed to be smoking. The officer wanted to warn him, but something covered his face. Then, the warning was like crazy. Others wanted to stop him, but were scared away by the gun. The police officer seemed to have endured unimaginable fear. He took out his gun and held it shakily, but did not fire a single shot. Others also began to go crazy. This demonstration only cost me 5 ounces of new gas. Tomorrow, this demonstration will look like a child's trick. Gotham residents, you will only get one warning. Sizzle, accompanied by a very harsh sound, the figure of the scarecrow disappeared from the TV, and the whole Gotham began to tremble. Seeing the scarecrow disappear, Lina, who had never seen such a scene, asked, is this the daily life of Gotham? Probably. Jello said solemnly. Jello was very impressed by this plot. Before he crossed over, the scarecrow threatened Gotham with a new type of fear gas. It was the beginning of a game plot. Because of the high quality of the game and a certain damn guy, Jello had a very deep impression of this game. This incident is related to the mystery of the Red Hood in the comics. The main storyline is that the second-generation Robin Jason Todd resurrected to become the Arkham Knight and pulled out an army, and cooperated with the Scarecrow to launch a revenge on Batman. But Jason Todd certainly didn't really want to kill Batman. He just wanted a hug or comfort, and answers. If this incident was just planned by the Arkham Knight and the Scarecrow, Jello wouldn't bother to care. But in Jello's memory, there is a very scary dark line hidden in this incident, a dark line that is so scary that it can send the entire Earth to the sky. Thinking of this, Jello was stunned. Seeing that Jello seemed to be petrified, Lina called out softly with concern. Jello, what's wrong with you? Hearing Lina's call, Jello came back to his senses, waved his hand and said, it's okay, I'll take you away from Gotham first, Lina. Take me away first? Lina heard something wrong from Jello's words. She frowned and asked, Jello, do you want to stay in Gotham? Almost. I have some things I need to check. You don't have to worry about me. Jello nodded and replied. Chapter Gotham Riot Request Free Recommendation. Earth Gotham. The next night, it was still raining in Gotham. This damn heavy rain never stopped, except for a period of time when the Joker was cremated 9 months ago, when it was sunny for a while, and then it quickly became dark again. Watching the last bus evacuating civilians leaving Gotham, GCPD Chief Jim Gordon, who was wearing a beige windbreaker, white hair, and glasses, stood under the eaves and drank a cup of high-concentration coffee. The caffeine made Chief Gordon's brain clear again, and made him understand that all this was real. Scarecrow's threat worked. Yesterday, Gotham still hit 6.3 million residents, but today there are only a few left. The only people left on the streets are those who have taken advantage of the riots. Those guys are criminals, scum. What's worse, there are not enough good people left to stop them. In just 24 hours, the entire city is out of control. Tonight, the fate of Gotham will be in the hands of one person. Snap! With a crisp sound, a searchlight was turned on by Chief Gordon, and a bad pattern appeared in the sky. As soon as the symbol appeared, the thugs who were still smashing and looting in the city began to tremble with their hands and hearts. Looking at the bad symbol in the sky, Jello, who was hiding on the rooftop of a small building in Gotham, wearing a very low-key blue and black combat uniform, did not leave Gotham, but stayed to verify a possibility and murmured, Batman. Ding 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 ding. A phone call came in, and Jello answered the call through the black technology sunglasses. Hello, Jello, are you okay over there? Lina's voice came over. I'm back in Metropolis now. Jello replied, that's good, pay attention to the killer of that woman, at least tonight. I can't go back. Okay, hang up. Without saying any more nonsense, Lina hung up the phone, and Jello also heard the sound of landing behind him. The sound was very crisp. Jello turned around and saw a figure as elegant as a gymnast slowly standing up. After more than a year, he has become more mature and can even protect a city alone. I didn't expect you to come to Gotham, and you're willing to stay. Nightwing, also known as Dick Grayson, walked up to Jello and looked at his friend whom he hadn't seen for a long time. Shrugging his shoulders, Jello said jokingly, "When you see injustice, you should help. When encountering such a thing, how could I just sit back and do nothing? He won't be happy." Nightwing said meaningfully, "Especially when a superpower like you intervenes in Gotham." Jello replied, "My affairs have nothing to do with him." "So, you have a reason to stay in Gotham?" Nightwing asked. "But I don't think I can convince that guy." Jello said frankly, "After all, it's just a hunch. Intuition. Tell me about it." After hearing this, Nightwing frowned. After being out there for so long, Nightwing also knows that sometimes intuition is even more useful than facts. Too lazy to hide the competition he participated in during this period, Jello said to Nightwing very frankly, "You should know the competition I participated in during this period. Before I came to Gotham, I had a feeling that some kind of accident would happen." "Accident? It must not be just Scarecrow, right?" Nightwing asked. "I feel that it is a very terrible thing. If I have to give an example, it's like the one in Metropolis not long ago, or even more serious." Jello responded to Nightwing with a half-truth. Hearing this, Nightwing suddenly felt a headache. "If you're right, it is not easy to get through. Although that guy probably has a way to solve it, if we just stand by and watch, that's not our style." Jello raised the corner of his mouth and smiled. "Am I right, Nightwing?" "Yes, Ultraman." Nightwing also smiled. "That's right." Jello just finished speaking, and felt the ground shaking under his feet. Not only this small building, but the whole Gotham was hit by an earthquake. The intensity of the earthquake was not low, it looked like 6 or 7 levels, and Jello couldn't help but complain. "Your Gotham is not a place where earthquakes of this magnitude will occur, right?" "It's true." Nightwing said in a deep voice, "When I was still an assistant to the guy, there were several earthquakes like this, and each time it was accompanied by bad things. Let's go and take a look together." Jello asked Nightwing. "Slow down, I can't fly." "Don't worry, I drove here this time." After saying that, Jello jumped off the small building and landed on the ground, and Dying Dame had been waiting here for a long time. "This guy." Nightwing smiled helplessly, and then also landed on the tall building, and his Nightwing motorcycle was ready to go at any time. Like two lightning bolts shuttling between heavy rain, Jello and Nightwing came to the core of the earthquake. This was a cemetery. Many tombstones were destroyed in the earthquake just now, and there was a big pit on the ground. Half squatting on the ground, Nightwing used his special mask to scan everything on the scene and analyze it. "Did something crawl out?" Nightwing murmured as he looked at the traces on the ground. "Climb out from underground." "Damn." Hearing this, Jello suddenly remembered something. He was too lazy to care about other things and directly wrapped Nightwing with telekinesis. The next second, a giant grey figure pressed down on Nightwing. Solomon grunted, "Land on Monday." The figure roared, and the sound was very unpleasant, like an old organ. Nightwing, who was wrapped by Jello's telekinesis, was not injured, but the ground under his feet was not in good condition. The power dissipated to the ground along the telekinesis shield. Crack, crack, the ground kept cracking, as if another earthquake was about to happen. "Run!" Jello shouted at Dick, and then began to transform. US-03S7 mechanical sound and strong white light appeared together. The sudden sound and light attracted the attention of the grey figure, so he turned around and attacked Jello. Baptized on Tuesday, the legendary giant zombie, Solomon Grundy, swung his terrifying fist at Zero, but Zero, wearing the 7 armor, was fearless. Holding an ice axe, his figure was like a flash of lightning, turning into a silver light across Solomon Grundy's body. The ice axe cut open Solomon Grundy's rotten skin, and a foul smell spread, but in less than a second, Solomon Grundy's wound healed itself. In a certain base, 2 nutrition cabins were opened, and 2 figures wearing black combat uniforms and black helmets stood up from them because they received an order. Fight and with Ultraman. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novel, as there you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Zinjiro. I feel a little pain in my right leg. Earth Gotham facing Solomon Grundy, who appeared for unknown reasons. Jello did not dare to underestimate the enemy. The ice axe in his right hand cut Solomon Grundy hundreds of times in 1 second. Hundreds of wounds appeared on Solomon Grundy at the same time, but Solomon Grundy did not feel any pain. He roared, "Marry on Wednesday." Then he raised his fists and smashed towards Jello, but Solomon Grundy's movements were too rough, and it was easy for Jello to dodge. With a kick of his feet, Jello easily dodged this move, but the land under Jello's feet suffered. Boom. The terrible force made a loud noise when it touched the ground, and countless soil flew into the sky, mixed with coffins, bones, rotten meat and burial objects. Ray. In the sky full of mud, Jello silently chanted in his heart, and a green laser burst out from the laser light on the forehead of the Seven Armor. Beep. Solomon Grundy was hit by the Ray on the spot, causing his entire left arm to explode, but Solomon Grundy's cloudy eyes still did not react. Thursday is infected. Solomon Grundy roared, and his left arm recovered in an instant, and then used the old trick to deal with Zero. "Trouble, we have to find a way to bury him," Zero murmured. Solomon Grundy's strength is not much worse than that of normal Superman. Although his defense is much lower than Superman, coupled with his lack of pain and very terrible self-healing ability, he is simply the most annoying opponent, just like a fly. At this time, Nightwing delivered information next to Zero. "Ultraman, this guy is called Solomon Grundy, a zombie. Batman and I have dealt with him before. He is very difficult, but freezing, electric shock, and paralysis are still useful to him." Hearing Nightwing's voice, Zero also had a way to deal with Solomon Grundy in his mind. His figure kept dodging and avoiding Solomon Grundy's attacks. At the same time, Jello put his palms together, and a stream of water gushed out from the tip of his palms, constantly falling on Solomon Grundy. Solomon Grundy was a little confused by this sudden water flow, but his brain, which couldn't calculate that 1 + 2 = 3, couldn't guess what Jello wanted to do, and just felt very strange. Swinging his fist to clear the water flow, Solomon Grundy roared again. "Friday is critically ill. I suggest you get down to the ground directly," Jello complained, and the temperature of the water flow at the tip of his palm continued to decrease, and within 2 seconds it turned into a freezing ray. In conjunction with the water flow that had not been completely cleared before, ice debris continued to appear on Solomon Grundy's body, and it was still increasing step by step. 15 seconds later, Solomon Grundy was completely wrapped in ice. Solomon Grundy was about to be frozen by Jello, but at this moment, 2 figures fell into the cemetery like missiles. Boom. Boom. 2 loud noises fell into Jello's ears at the same time. He was alarmed and stopped his action immediately and retreated. This action was very wise, because a fist just brushed Jello's head. After standing firm and adjusting his center of gravity, Jello looked at the 2 figures that suddenly appeared. The 2 figures were one big and one small. They were both wearing black combat uniforms and black helmets on their heads. There were not many markings on their bodies, but with his supervision, Jello still found 2 serial numbers on the combat uniforms of these 2 guys, B0 and B1. The one who just punched Jello was the smaller figure. He spread his arms and mocked Jello in a playful tone. "Yo yo yo, is this the legendary Ultraman? It's nothing special." This tone was very asking for a fight. Jello took out another ice axe, pointed the sharp blade directly at this guy, and said coldly, "Is it the same as the legend? We'll know after a fight." Bang! After saying that, Jello shot out, throwing an ice axe as a throwing knife, and holding the other ice axe in his hand as a close combat weapon. Just in time. The face of the B1 experiment subject under the helmet smiled slightly, and then burst out with a speed faster than fear and Eek. He casually dodged the ice axe used as a throwing knife, and then attacked Jello. Dang! The fist and the ice axe collided with a loud sound, and Jello's legs sank deeply into the ground. Through the ice axe, he felt the terrible power of this guy. "Why is it just like this?" The B1 experiment subject wanted to say more. But Jello would not tolerate this guy. While the other party had no way to escape, he shot out an Emerald beam and hit the body of Experiment B1. The impact forced Experiment B1 back, and the ice axe that he dodged also flew back under Jello's telekinesis. In order to increase the lethality, Jello threw a beam of light bullets at the ice axe to speed up the ice axe. Experiment B1, who lacked combat experience, was beaten by this series of combos and had no power to fight back. He was beaten back hundreds of meters. The black combat uniform used to collect data was damaged. Experiment B1's eyes turned red, and a surge of anger surged in his heart. Then he shouted at Jello, "You forced me to do this." Then, 2 heat vision rays shot towards Jello. "What did I force you to do?" Jello muttered in his heart. He casually propped up an ultra barrier, and the two heat vision rays hit it, but they could not make Jello move at all. Looking at these two thermal visions, Jello also roughly understood the origins of B1 and B0 who had been hiding next to him. In the original timeline, there was a plan codenamed Cadmus, and the specific content had changed many times. Even Jello only remembered their goal, which was to create a weapon that could counter Superman. This goal was somewhat a pipe dream, but even so, they could still create many difficult products. Death to Planet 6. Raw. Because Jello had not completely frozen Solomon Grunter before, Solomon Grunter broke out of the ice, and another experimental subject marked as B0 also attacked Jello. Deal with 3 at once. Jello resisted the thermal vision of B1 while taking in the attacks of B0 and Solomon grunted, and he already had a strategy to deal with the enemy in his heart. It was wearing the 7 armor and fighting 3 people alone that made Jello feel pain in his legs, especially his right leg. Mobilizing the energy in his body, Jello converted the energy into light energy and made them burst out in the form of sparks on the surface of his body. Suddenly, a sun appeared in the cemetery. Solomon Grundy, B0 and B1 were blinded by the sudden and intense light. Chapter now it's acting time. Gotham, Earth. Because Zero suddenly burst out a burst of strong light, the 3 guys who wanted to besiege him had to stop and subconsciously use their arms to block the strong light. What is this light? B1 muttered. When the strong light faded, Zero disappeared from the sight of B0, B1 and Solomon Grundy. B0 scratched his head in a muffled voice. Where did that guy go? Due to the defects of the experiment, the intelligence of the B0 experiment will be low, but the ability is still okay. Without Zero was the first target of hatred, Solomon Grundy targeted B0 and B1. He clenched his fists fiercely and was ready to attack at any time. TSK, B1 was shocked and complained, is this the ally you found for us? His brain is not as normal as my brother. As soon as the voice fell, Solomon Grundy attacked the B1 experiment, but B1 was still able to tease Solomon Grundy like flying a kite. B1 got annoyed while playing around. He shouted to B0, come with me and deal with this brainless guy first. Okay. B0 replied seriously, and then rushed to Solomon Grundy first and started fighting with him. The 2 big guys who were both brainless started fighting. The scene was very philosophical, but the residents of this cemetery should not be happy. After B0 entangled Solomon Grundy, B1 joined the battle circle and besieged Solomon Grundy together. That's it, just right. Jello, who escaped from the battle circle, held a beam ray in his right hand, slightly pulled the trigger, and released his hand without accumulating too much energy. He now wanted to make the people hiding in the dark think that he wanted to sneak attack, but in order not to attract attention, he used a less intense attack. Swoosh, a golden beam of light gushed out and finally landed on the 3 people in the melee. The beam ray bombarded them, causing the 3 of them to stop moving at the same time. After a while, the golden beam slowly disappeared, and Zero also put the beam back into the broken watch, pretending to take back the 2 ice axes, and said in surprise, "What a terrible defensor. Ultraman." The enraged B1 roared, stepped on the ground, and rushed towards Zero. Bang! The ice axe and fist collided again, and this time, it was not only B1, but also B0 and Solomon Grundy who came to Zero again. Facing the siege of 3 people, Zero did not use the radom life support system, and all his actions highlighted a performance. There was no desperate battle when facing the Kryptonian warriors. Zero was acting the whole time when facing these 3 guys. The beam skills were almost useless. He just relied on his physical ability and fighting skills to deal with these 3 guys. Solomon Grundy and B0 were strong but not smart enough, and B1 was too immature. There was no coordination between the 3, and occasionally they would cause friendly damage. If he was seriously injured by these 3, Zero would rather commit suicide. After knocking back the B0 experiment with 1 punch, Zero was still wondering if he had used too much strength, but B0 quickly regrouped and attacked again. Based on his observations during the battle, Zero guessed that B0 should be Bizarro, a clone of Superman. His abilities were not weak, but his superpowers were the opposite of Clark's. As for B1, Zero guessed that he was the future Superboy Jello Kent, but he was created before the formation of the Justice League, and there was no young Justice League or Teen Titans to guide him, so he looked very irritable and immature, which meant he needed a beating. At this point, Zero also guessed who was leading the Cadmus project on this Earth. In this way, Zero thought while dealing with 3 guys with good strength but extremely bad skills, and slowly put himself at a disadvantage. Zero pretended to be careless and was strangled by B0 from behind. Solomon Grundy did not miss this opportunity and punched Zero again and again, but he did not do much damage. In order to make it less obvious, Zero quickly used the skill of emitting strong light to break free from Solomon and Grundy, but this time the light was not as dazzling as last time, and it seemed that he was lacking energy. Noticing Zero's escape, B0 fired cold rays from his eyes at Zero. Zero was hit by the cold rays without any evasion. The low-temperature environment actually restrains Zero to a certain extent, because in the low-temperature environment, Zero needs to consume more energy than usual to maintain his activities. So Zero began to pretend that he was going to die. B1 and Solomon Grundy also took this opportunity to attack Zero, and they fought hard, but they only damaged the 7 armor and Zero himself was slightly scratched. Through the battle footage broadcast by Lex Group Satellite, Lex was able to know the details of the battle. He tapped the table with his index finger, and his expression was a little strange. Strange, why did he become weaker? But all the necessary data has been collected, so they can come back. At the same time, in a cemetery in Gotham City, Jello was acting with 3 guys. B0 and B1 received the order and stopped attacking Jello. B0 flew away without hesitation, while B1 looked back at Jello with some reluctance, and then gave Jello's right leg a hot look. Too lazy to hide, Jello pretended to shout. "Ah!" Jello deliberately shouted, thinking to himself, "Why do you worry about you, and don't you forget to hit me before you leave?" The petty Jello Kent kept all this in his heart and prepared to slowly retaliate later. Seeing B0 and B1 leave, Solomon Grundy was confused, but it was obvious that his brain was not enough to support him to maintain such high-intensity thinking. Solomon Grundy gave up thinking and continued to yell at Jello. Buried on Sunday. Solomon Grundy, go all the way. Stop making so much noise. Jello dodged Solomon Grundy's fist and waved his hand. His telekinesis instantly turned into a large net to control Solomon Grundy. At this moment, Nightwing also jumped out from the side and threw several electric bombs at Solomon Grundy. The strong current immediately covered Solomon Grundy's whole body. A burnt smell suddenly appeared in the air. Combined with the smell that Solomon Grundy already had, the whole cemetery was filled with an indescribable stench. Whoo! After spewing out bursts of black smoke from his mouth, Solomon Grundy fell to the ground with a loud bang. Walking up to Jello and glancing at the tattered 7 armor, Nightwing couldn't help but complain, "Have you had enough fun? Others may not be sure, but I absolutely don't believe that you can't beat these 3 guys." To cover up some things, Jello patted the dirt off his body, turned his head and said to someone in the shadows, "Am I right, Miss Photographer?" Ace Chemical Plant, Earth Gotham. At Jello's call, a figure slowly walked out from the darkness, holding a camera in her hand. It was photographer Donna Troy. After taking the 7 armor back to the Broken Watch for repair, Jello joked to Donna Troy, "Did you find a good angle for the photo? Otherwise, I will sue you for infringing my reputation." Hearing that Jello's tone did not mean to pursue responsibility, Donna shrugged her shoulders and rolled her eyes. "The angle is okay, but the light is not enough. The light can be done in post-production." Jello, who was wearing black technology sunglasses and a black and blue combat uniform, smiled. Looking at the 2 people who were very familiar with each other, Nightwing was a little confused, so he asked, "Do you know each other? This lady should be unique in the field of photography." Jello folded his arms, then looked at Donna and said, "Am I right, Miss Donna Troy?" Flicking her beautiful black hair, Donna Troy smiled and said, "Yes, Mr. Ultraman, it seems that you know my work." As far as Jello knows, Donna Troy is a member of the hero organization Titan, codenamed Wonder Girl. She has many origins, but in most of them, she has the strength to fight Wonder Woman. This made her the main force of Titan for a time. Usually, she is a photographer in a photography studio, and sometimes she will take some photos in dangerous places with her ability. Looking at the little girl who did not hide her identity at all and was still running around in places like Gotham, Nightwing kindly advised, "Get away from me, Nightwing, she is not an ordinary person." Before Nightwing finished speaking, Jello interrupted him. While the 3 were chatting, Solomon Grundy, who had just been knocked unconscious, stood up again with his healing ability. He was a little unstable at first, but soon, he stood up. Seeing 3 living people at once, Solomon Grundy was a little surprised, but he immediately locked onto Jello and rushed over. Because the light on Jello was too dazzling for Solomon Grundy, seeing Solomon Grundy rushing towards him, Jello was not in a hurry. He looked at Donna Troy and said, "My armor needs some time. Can you buy me some time? Beautiful photographer lady." It's a very clumsy compliment, but I like it a little. As she spoke, Donna rushed towards Solomon Grundy. Her figure was as agile as a cheetah. As Nightwine, a disciple of Batman, it was even more difficult to tell how much training this required. Then, Donna stood in front of Jello, her arms crossed to form an X shape, and the sleeves of her black windbreaker slid down, revealing a silver bracelet. Dang! The next second, Solomon Grundy's huge fists slammed into Donna's bracelets. The huge force made Donna step back slightly. After the pair of silver bracelets absorbed enough power, Donna shook her arms, and the power burst out, pushing Solomon Grundy back again and again. Just in time. Seeing this, Jello jumped up and hit Solomon Grundy on the head, causing the big zombie to become temporarily insensitive. Nightwine took advantage of this and threw a few more electric bombs to knock Solomon Grundy unconscious. A set of combos temporarily paralyzed Solomon Grundy, but he would wake up again soon. In order to prevent that from happening, Jello picked up Solomon Grundy and threw him into the big pit he climbed out of. Then he used telekinesis to transport a lot of soil and filled the whole pit. After doing all this, Jello said to Nightwine, "Remember to ask him to get a construction team to reinforce this place. Don't worry, we did it this way before." Nightwine nodded and said, then he looked at Donna, and after a moment of silence, he said, "I've seen a similar bracelet in that guy's file." "Really?" Pinching her silver bracelet, Donna's mind appeared a figure, but she didn't want to chase it. Instead, she looked at Jello and Nightwine respectively and asked, "Are you doing anything interesting? Can I join you?" "No problem, but I'm not alone." Jello spread his hands, indicating that he allowed Donna to join. The influence behind this matter is too great, and the stronger the power on his side is naturally, the better, but he can't act alone, and he has to take care of Dick's thoughts. Although he was once Batman's first Robin, Nightwine's paranoia is not that serious. Especially in this incident, Solomon Grundy appeared, and two guys who seemed to be Kryptonians and could fight back and forth with Jello. This forced Dick to start thinking whether he needed more extraordinary fighting power. "Don't be too arrogant, Miss Photographer," Nightwine said. The meaning of the words was very clear. Nightwine didn't mind Donna joining in, but he didn't want to be dragged back for some reason. Is this considered a short-term alliance? Jello touched his chin playfully. Batman's first-generation Robin, Wonder Woman's imitation, Superman's brother, it was like a replica of the Justice League. Is it so? Nightwine replied to Jello, and then walked towards the direction of Nightwine's motorcycle. "Let's go, we can't stay here forever." Boom boom. Nightwine didn't finish his words again, and there was a violent vibration from the ground. Relying on the instinct she had trained to maintain her center of gravity, Donna subconsciously said, "Is it that zombie? No, there should be an explosion somewhere." Realizing something, Jello immediately used his supervision. Following the direction of the vibration, he saw a chemical plant isolated and read out the name of the chemical plant. Ace Chemical Plant. Ace Chemical Plant. If that's where we are, we have to hurry. As a local, Nightwine's face changed when he heard the name. Then he quickened his pace and ran towards Nightwine's motorcycle without looking back. Without Nightwine's words, Jello also guessed how far things had developed. In a place like Gotham, teleportation cannot be used indiscriminately, so Jello remotely controlled Ewing Dam to make it appear in front of him. Jello wrote on it and asked Donna, "Want to write?" "That's what I meant." After that, Donna gladly accepted Jello's invitation and drove towards the direction of Ace Chemical Plant with Jello. The two motorcycles stopped on the bridge leading to Ace Chemical Plant. They lost their way forward. Before Jello and Donna were ready to jump in, a priceless chariot crashed through the gate of the chemical plant and finally landed on the bridge. The old bat's eyes a little green. Earth Gotham. On the bridge leading to the Ace Chemical Plant, a pitch-black chariot was pushed by the shockwave generated by the explosion, and finally landed steadily in the sight of Jello and his three companions. This pitch-black chariot is made of a kind of black technology material. The sound produced during driving is very small. There are 4 universal steering wheels at the front and back, and a launcher that can fire a lance in front of the car. The weapons are hidden, but at the critical moment, this chariot can be transformed into an extremely flexible tank. In addition to the passenger cabin that can carry 2 humanoid criminals at the rear of the car, there is also a booster for acceleration. Now, there is only one person who can drive this Batmobile, Batman. Swoosh. The sound of the Batmobile's hood opening was very light, which means that the 3 people either have super hearing or are familiar with Batman's style, otherwise normal human hearing can't hear this sound at all. The next second, Batman, the real father of the DC universe, wearing a movable titanium alloy liquid armor made by the Wayne Group's cutting-edge technology, a magneto-helilogical liquid suit, a bad cape, and a half-bad helmet, appeared in front of Jello for the first time, and the first thing he said to Jello and the other two was, "Leave this city." Batman was very frugal and didn't want to say anything more. Donna was not familiar with Batman and didn't know how to say it. Jello was similar. Although Superman and Batman were very familiar with each other, Jello was really unfamiliar with Batman and was even a little afraid of Batman. "Batman, this matter is not as simple as you think. Listen, Nightwing wanted to tell Batman what happened in the cemetery before. I can handle it alone," Batman said stubbornly. That being said, Batman felt a familiar voice appear in his ears, urging him. "Quick, Bruce, kill these annoying little ghosts, then it will be quiet." Hectares. However, Batman has been through many battles, so this little auditory hallucination can't affect him. But he also feels that the longer he stays here, the clearer the sound becomes, until he can distinguish the source of the sound. Not long ago, Batman found out that Scarecrow and a guy named Arkham Knight were hiding in the Ace Chemical Factory, planning to mass-produce a new type of fear gas. The guy named Arkham Knight is very dangerous, and Batman even fell into his trap for a while. However, Batman saw that Arkham Knight and Scarecrow are very at odds. Taking advantage of an opportunity, he temporarily repelled Arkham Knight, and after rescuing the hostages, he sneaked into the depths of the factory to destroy Scarecrow's plan to produce a new type of fear gas. But at the critical moment of neutralizing the gas, the battle between Jello and Solomon Grundy, B0, and B1 affected the Ace Chemical Factory. Although Batman turned the tide, he still inhaled a lot of fear gas. "Don't do this," Nightwing advised. "What you should do is go back to Bloodhaven, where you are needed more, Nightwing." Batman flicked his cape, walked around Nightwing, walked to Jello and Donna who are still riding on Uindam, and said in his deep voice, "Leave this city." Batman also set his sights on Jello, staring at Jello with his eyes that examined everything in the world, and said alone, "Especially you, Ultraman. Hectares. Kill this alien bastard. Hurry up, bad boy." The extremely crazy voice appeared in Batman's ears again. Looking at Batman's eyes, Jello felt his hands tremble for some reason. However, Jello is wearing sunglasses on his face, so as long as his face did not move, even Batman could only suspect him with a guessing mentality. What a strange eye, even a little green. At this point, Jello also began to guess what Batman was doing. Batman is not forcing them to leave. It is often the opposite. Batman wants them to stay in Gotham, especially he wants to stay in Gotham, because Batman also knows that sooner or later, he will become another clown, or even a more terrible clown. And now, Batman is very likely telling himself that there is something wrong with him and he needs someone he trusts to stop him. But this is just Jello's speculation, because the one standing in front of him is one of the top 3 hangers-on in the DC universe. If he wants to know the truth, he can only rely on Batman's self-narration. Batman shouted at the 3 people, "My warning, only once." The low tone is the nightmare of many criminals in Gotham. As soon as the voice fell, Batman dropped a smoke bomb, left the sight of the 3 people when the smoke dissipated, and drove the Batmobile away. Looking at the Batmobile gradually going away in the dark night, Donna looked at the 2 men and asked, "Now, do you want to investigate further?" "Of course." Jello and Nightwing replied at the same time. Nightwing was worried about whether Batman would be injured, while Jello was worried about something else. "It's just that we won't investigate Scarecrow's fear gas," Nightwing said as he started the motorcycle, "but we're going to investigate the so-called Arkham Knight. How exactly did he send an army to Gotham?" Anyway, Batman didn't say anything, as long as he doesn't find out. Jello lowered his body, and the tires of the U-Bond began to turn. Seeing this, Donna said to the 2, "But where should we start investigating? I put trackers on those 2 guys, and now, the 2 signals have stopped, and the place is exactly near the Gotham port." Nightwing took out a positioning tracker, on which there were 2 motionless red dots. "Wait, how did you put trackers on those 2 guys in that kind of battle?" Donna asked in confusion. At this time, Nightwing showed the unique mysticism of the Bat family and made a silencing gesture to Donna. "This is a secret, Miss Photographer. This is their secret, no need to ask, let's go, the next stop is Gotham Port." After saying something to Donna casually, Jello rushed out in the U-Bond first, and left a message for Nightwing who left later. "The person who arrives late has to buy me a drink, you bastard." Seeing this, Nightwing gritted his teeth, then turned the accelerator to the bottom and drove in the direction of Jello. The trio almost crossed Gotham. Along the way, they didn't see much, except for thugs. Jello and Donna would knock down a few of them, but it didn't affect the speed. Until they arrived at the destination of this trip, Gotham Port. Just using supervision and super hearing to scan, Jello heard nearly 1,000 heartbeats, and some of the heartbeats were very strong. Chapter 1 Robin. Nothing more than that. Earth Gotham Harbor. It was still raining heavily at this time. The rain sprinkled on the ground, but it could not take away any mud. This guy is very willing to do it. Jello said in a voice that only the two of them could hear. Fully armed troops, even if it's just here. There are 20 tanks, plus infrared turrets, and some soldiers are wearing special armed vests. After explaining the situation of the army under the command of Arkham Knight, Nightwing heard that this army was obviously trained to defeat Batman. Who on earth knows Batman so well? But there is no one alive now who can do this. Nightwing murmured in confusion, but no matter how he thought about it or calculated it, he didn't know who else alive could know everything about Batman so well. With this level of understanding, Nightwing himself even felt that the guy had been with Batman for a long time. What if it's not a living person? Jello hinted to Nightwing, this world is amazing, Nightwing, and besides, don't many people think I'm dead? That's right, maybe I can look for it among the dead Arkham patients. Nightwing whispered. What are you talking about? Donna looked at the two with a question mark on her face. She didn't know much, and now she only had one question. What should we do now? It's impossible to just rush in directly, right? That won't work, it will alert the enemy. Jello shook his head and said, then made a suggestion, Nightwing, you sneak into the base to collect intelligence. If there is an accident, I will make these guys shut up, and Miss Photographer, you just watch out for enemies from afar. How about that? Wow, you've improved. How's your stealth skill? After hearing that Jello could come up with a decent action plan, Nightwing also began to praise Jello. Of course I've improved. Seeing Jello's answer, Nightwing also asked expectantly, it used to take 12 seconds to be discovered, how about now? 6 seconds. Jello replied proudly. Puff. After hearing Jello's answer, Nightwing almost vomited blood. He pointed at Jello and used a questioning tone. Is this how you think progress is made? It will be discovered in just 6 seconds. What kind of progress is this? Isn't it? Jello replied very naturally. Nightwing said embarrassedly, I seriously doubt that the progress you were talking about is your face. In fact, there is still strength. Jello raised his eyebrows, then slowly started the small broken watch, selected the beta magic stick, and slapped it heavily with the powerful diamond palm. In order not to cause unnecessary trouble, Jello deliberately cancelled the strong light, and the silver-ebbed first-generation armor quietly appeared on Jello's body, and the color slowly turned into black and red. The black and red armor added a sense of solemnity to Jello. He lowered his voice like Batman and made it hoarse. Okay, Nightwing, let the plan begin. Glancing at Jello unhappily, Nightwing shook his head and took out 2 visual earphone-type communicators, handing them to Jello and Donna respectively. Put it on. We'll rely on this to communicate from now on. Okay. Donna put the visual headset communicator into her left ear, while Jello put it on his helmet and connected to the cord channel. After making sure that both of them were thick-skinned superhumans put on the visual headset communicator, Nightwing disappeared into the night. In the past, Nightwing had been to Gotham Port with Batman countless times, which made him more familiar with this port than the mercenaries under the Arkham Knight. He was once a member of the flying family Flying Grayson, and with Batman's careful teaching, Nightwing has the top skills among mortals. Very sophisticated defense, and Nightwing hid from the mercenaries' sight while sneaking into the depths of the port and into the underground. Looking at the various defensive equipment around him, Nightwing felt that this place was no longer suitable to be called a port, but a militarized base. Along the way, Nightwing saw the defenses that Jello had mentioned, and even weapons that Jello could not see. In recent years, as the number of superhumans has increased, many organizations have begun to study weapons against superhumans. For example, there is a new type of lead-like material that does not contain lead but has the same effect. Weapons with this material cannot be seen through. If the guy comes, I'm afraid it will be exposed now, right? Nightwing thought silently. Then, Nightwing found a main console, opened the panel with props, and then changed the wiring inside, which made some weapons ineffective when the mercenaries were unaware. Time slowly moved forward, and Nightwing came to the deepest part of the base, where there were the largest number of mercenaries and the most sophisticated weapons. Moreover, the patrol routes of the mercenaries were very regular, and no one would be left alone, so Nightwine had no chance to knock them out, but this was not difficult. Nightwine's movements were more flexible than Swallow's. He easily avoided all sights and opened the deepest door with a cracking tool. Walking in, Nightwine felt that the temperature was much lower, and there were many sophisticated equipment around. Nightwine was not very familiar with these, so he activated the recording function of the special mask and transmitted the picture to Jello, who was wearing a visual headset-type communicator, and Jello answered. Is this the new control terminal of the code group and the nano-transmission tube of the Queen group? And Lex, Palmer, Wayne, these people are really willing to spend money. Just the things you showed me are worth 20 million. Jello's voice came from the headset, letting Nightwine know the approximate purpose of these devices. Then he found 2 nutrition capsules and something similar to a missile warhead in the depths of this room. The ones lying in there are those 2 guys, right? After scanning the nutrition capsule, Nightwine turned his attention to the missile warhead. The special mask could only scan out approximate data and transmit the approximate data to Jello. Looking at the data transmitted by Nightwine, Jello raised his right hand and touched his chin through the helmet, muttering, "Why is the reading of this thing so similar to the spacium particles?" While Jello was puzzled, Nightwine was still collecting clues on the other side. After getting some data, his intuition told Nightwine that this place had become very dangerous. Boom! A violent fire burst out behind Nightwine, and the impact blew Nightwine against the wall. Gravity made him fall rapidly. With years of training, Nightwine adjusted his center of gravity as soon as he landed, and looked in the direction of the explosion. A figure slowly walked out of the fire, holding a pistol in each hand, and said to Nightwine in a provocative tone, "Is this Batman's first Robin?" Now it seems that he is nothing more than that. Arkham Knight, Earth Gotham, deep in the Gotham Harbor, deep in the semi-military base, the Arkham Knight, wearing a bat's helmet-like protective gear on his head, holding 2 guns, facing the explosion with his back to the fire, facing Nightwine. Batman's first Robin. Nightwine noticed this key point. Batman has always kept his identity secret very well, and most of the Gotham villains can't distinguish several Robins. This guy can also distinguish Robins? What is his origin? Nightwine thought silently. He was not afraid of the Arkham Knight, because his voice communication has never been turned off. I suggest you be more reasonable, little bird. Arkham Knight pointed both guns at Nightwine, and the threat in his tone was very obvious. My guns are loaded with depleted uranium armor-piercing bullets. Even if it's just a scratch, it's enough to break your spine. Really? Nightwine stood up fearlessly, 2 multifunctional short sticks fell into his hands, staring at Arkham Knight with his eyes, and said firmly, "But I once heard from someone that guns are weapons for the weak." Humph, damn Batman. Hearing what Nightwine said, Arkham Knight immediately snorted coldly, as if he knew who said it. And the phrase "damn Batman" made Nightwine feel that this man was like his brother. Looking at Nightwine, Arkham Knight didn't intend to kill him. He raised his left hand and waved, and 2 tall figures appeared in the firelight. If you think using guns is for the weak, then you should fight the strong. As soon as Arkham Knight finished speaking, 2 2-meter tall figures slowly walked to Arkham Knight's side. Both guys had strong muscles and extremely cruel eyes, and one of them even had reptilian features. The guy with reptilian features had green scales all over his body, nails like claws, teeth like crocodiles, and a strong tail behind him that was constantly moving. The other one was wearing a black and white mask like a wrestler, a black tactical vest, black half-finger gloves on his hands, black tactical pants and tactical boots on his lower body. Of course, what attracted the most attention was the venom tank behind him with several infusion tubes connected. "Then let them treat you well, little bird," Arkham Knight said playfully, then hunched his back and prepared to leave Nightwine's sight. Facing these 2 guys, Nightwine recognized their identities at a glance. Killer Croc. Bane. You are working for Arkham Knight. I'm a mercenary, Bird, and I am very interested in breaking the spine of another superhero. Bane smiled evilly and cracked his knuckles, making a crackling sound, which can enhance the venom of the human body and can be injected into his body at any time. I'll eat. Killer Croc stared at Nightwine with a beastly look. Unlike the beast transformation ability of normal superhumans, Killer Croc's reptilian characteristics come from reversion, and as time goes by, this situation will become more and more serious until it completely loses its humanity. I don't know if Killer Croc can still be 90% human after genetic testing. Have fun with them, Nightwine. Arkham Knight said word by word. Facing these 2 guys alone, Nightwine felt that he had little chance of winning, but he came with help today. That may be possible. Nightwine smiled confidently. Then, with a loud bang, the wall was smashed, smoke and dust scattered, and the strong wind blew away the flames produced by the previous explosion. A figure with silver-white electric light still wrapped around his body stood between Nightwine and Arkham Knight. He put his hands on his hips and stood up straight. The black and red color on his armor gradually faded and slowly turned back to silver red. Looking at the guy he had seen in the intelligence, Arkham Knight snorted coldly. He even brought helpers? That means he has helpers. Wearing the first-generation armor, Zero glanced at the enemy in front of him. Behind Zero was a long passage, which seemed to be created by him all the way. Troublesome guy. Arkham Knight's face twitched under the helmet, and then he was ready to order the sleeping B-Naught and B1 to go out. But standing in front of him was Zero. Swoosh, a circle of airwaves appeared under Zero's feet, and then he disappeared in front of everyone. When he appeared again, he was standing in front of Arkham Knight. He stretched out his hands, pinched his 5 fingers forward, and crushed Arkham Knight's armor respectively. The optical eyepiece emitted a dazzling light. Zero deliberately lowered his voice and said to Arkham Knight, "Can you still command those 2 guys now? You acted quickly, but I don't have total control." Although Zero held his hands, Arkham Knight was not afraid at all. Hearing this, Zero turned around at an extremely fast speed and threw a specium light slash, destroying one of the nutrition pod with the serial number B0, while the other nutrition pod with the serial number B1 opened its hatch before the specium light slash cut it, and the awakened B1 experimental subject jumped out of it. As soon as it appeared, B1 roared at Zero, "Ultraman!" Then, B1 mobilized all his strength, came to Zero in one step, clenched his right fist tightly, and all his muscles were tightly tensed, and threw a powerful punch at Zero. I don't know why B1 is so hostile to me, but at this time, Jello had to let go of the hands that were holding Arkham Knight's arms, quickly clenched his fists, organized his strength, and then fought with B1. With a loud bang, Jello and B1's fists collided violently, and in an instant, they destroyed the high-tech equipment worth up to 20 million in the room. While Jello was entangled by B1, Arkham Knight dropped a smoke bomb and ran away. Nightwine naturally wanted to chase him, but Bane and Killer Croc didn't let him succeed and stopped Nightwine's progress. At this time, Jello said to Nightwine in the call channel, "Leave these 3 guys to me, you go chase Arkham Knight. You must always remember the magic of this world. Arkham Knight may be someone who has died before." After that, Jello suddenly exerted force, and the Ultra Blast Fist came out, and the layers of blasting full force slammed into B1's arms. The terrible power exploded, and Jello could even see the black combat uniform on B1's body began to bulge. Ugh! B1 wailed as he was hit. He was unable to bear the blow and retreated backwards. Zero took the opportunity to jump behind Bane and Killer Croc. Bane and Killer Croc jumped aside quickly, avoiding Zero's tomahawk kick. Zingleo. Deep in the port base of Arkham Knight on Earth Gotham, with Zero's cover, Nightwine was able to track Arkham Knight. Zero was alone facing B1, Bane, and Killer Croc. Facing 3 supervillains at the same time, Zero was not afraid. He said to Bane and Killer Croc, who were keeping a distance from him, "Keep a distance." A good choice, but keeping a distance only makes sense in a battle of equal strength, and keeping a distance from me is meaningless. What? Just as Bane was about to inject venom, Zero slightly moved his mind, as if 2 invisible iron balls hit Bane and Killer Croc's heads at the same time, and knocked them out directly. This is the gap. After dealing with the small fish in his eyes, Zero set his sights on the recovered B1. "Next, only one left, what should you do?" As soon as the voice fell, the spacium light blades on the forearms of the first-generation armor lit up, and the blue light made the room a little brighter. A certain hormone in the brain increased under artificial control, and B1 became more angry, which made B1's strength continue to increase, and his body became slightly taller. "Ultraman, if you think you will justice, then come and defeat me." Hero B1, whose personality has not been fully developed, said very meaningless words to Zero. Zero naturally would not be angered by such a little provocation. Instead, he became curious. He began to wonder under what circumstances B1, who was like an irritable child in front of him, would grow into a superboy. Zero shook his head in self-mockery and said, "Justice? I have never felt so. Now I am far from worthy at the name of justice. Just like to say nice things." B1 said disdainfully, and then shot out. He hit Zero, who did not want to dodge, and through the passage created by Zero, B1 brought Zero back to the ground of Gotham Port. Rushing out of the underground, B1 let go of Zero's hand and then gave Zero a warm look. The heavy rain could not extinguish B1's red-hot vision. With the anger of its master, the red-hot vision blasted Zero's chest in the first-generation armor, causing Zero to retreat continuously. After seeing Zero crash through several containers in a row, B1 stopped firing hot vision. White steam came out of his eye sockets, and B1's body rose and fell with his breathing. Finally kill this annoying guy. Without hearing Zero's heartbeat, B1 felt that he had killed him. However, after experiencing a lot of battles and receiving gifts from Lucifer Morningstar, the Lord of Hell, how could B1 deal with Zero now? It's a little weak, but if you ask me, this level of thermal vision can only be used to shape people. Zero slowly walked in front of B1. Both of them were wearing helmets, which prevented them from seeing each other's expressions, but this did not affect Zero's mood. He condensed a specium light slash in his left hand and said to B1, "One more thing, you are not worthy of listening to nice words now." Then, Zero, wearing the first-generation armor, burst out with silver-white arcs, bursting out at a speed that a high-speed camera could not capture a frame. The specium light blade increased Zero's speed a little and drew a beautiful blue arc in the rainstorm. Faced with this speed, although B1 could see it, he had no time to react. He could only watch Zero stretch out his right hand and give him a loud slap, and then the specium light slash fell on B1's chest. Although the specium light slash could not seriously injure B1, it still made B1 feel very ashamed, especially the slap just now. Ultraman. With a roar, B1 rushed towards Zero again, and the two wrestled together. It can be said to be a wrestle, but in fact, it was just Zero's one-sided crushing of B1. At the same time, in another corner of Gotham Port, Donna was fighting with a mysterious man wearing a knight's helmet, a black battlesuit, and a white cloak behind him. The mysterious man was holding a pair of crutches, and he would change a fighting technique almost every 3 moves, which made Donna very uncomfortable. Donna had a golden lasso wrapped around her right arm, which was one of the standard equipment of the Amazon people. However, this time when she came to Gotham, Donna did not take her short sword, round shield and the most important armor, but only brought a lasso and bracelet. She thought that this would be enough to solve the enemy, but Donna did not expect that in this city of Gotham, where there were many talented people, a guy would jump out from nowhere and suppress her with dazzling fighting techniques. From the other party's mouth, Donna learned his name, Prometheus. As an Amazon, Donna certainly knew the meaning of the name Prometheus, but the guy in front of her who said "I want to destroy your justice" was far from what Donna knew. Prometheus ejected another flywheel from nowhere, and Donna quickly rolled to dodge. When he was sure that he couldn't quickly deal with Donna, Prometheus raised his right arm and said to Donna, "I'm sorry, I can't spend this good night with you, beautiful lady." In Prometheus's right arm armor, a pink bug drilled into his skin. Almost instantly, Prometheus's figure became huge, but he didn't become bloated, but very beautiful and streamlined. The battlesuit on his body was made for this situation, so when he became huge, the battlesuit did not appear damaged, but continued to fit his body. It's nice to feel full of power," Prometheus muttered to himself. He looked at Donna, but his eyes became very aggressive. "But I really feel hungry." "What is this?" Donna frowned and contacted Zero. "Ultraman, I am very capable here. I suddenly became very big and said that I am very hungry." In another place, Zero was thinking about Donna's question while hammering B1. Then he said decisively, "You should lead him to my side now. That guy can restrain you very well." After hearing Zero's idea, Donna immediately ran back to Zero. "Don't run." Although he knew that the target was not Donna, even Prometheus could hardly restrain his hunger instinct when he turned into this state. After a while, Zero heard Donna and Prometheus approaching him. He calculated the distance and then took advantage of B1 rushing towards him again like an angry bull. He threw B1 out with an overhand throw, and Donna and Prometheus also appeared at this time. After looking at Donna, Jello jumped with her to the high crane. The first-generation armor took back the broken watch, and a golden ring was put on Jello's hand. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novel, as there you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. The lion's eyes are shining with light. Earth Gotham at the port of Gotham, the rainstorm continued to fall, soaking the whole city. The dark clouds were occasionally cut by lightning, and a thunderbolt streaked across the sky, illuminating Zero standing on the crane. Under the illumination of the lightning, the golden ring worn on Zero's right finger was so dazzling. The lightning quickly dissipated, and Zero had crossed his hands in front of his chest, posing a karate fighting punching move to accumulate power, and then suddenly punched forward with his right fist. On the golden ring named Lion's Eye, a red gem burst into light, and then, the dazzling light enveloped Zero. Switch USO 7ly the cold mechanical sound and the dazzling light appeared at the same time. The light was very dazzling, and Prometheus, who had merged with the cosmic parasite, felt a huge amount of energy from it. When the Leo armor completely covered Zero, the light was wrapped up. Because of the loss of food, Prometheus was a little unhappy. Compared to the parasite that Zero dealt with almost 2 years ago, today's Prometheus is undoubtedly stronger. The muscle arrangement is no longer bloated, which can provide the host with more advantages in battle and amplify the host's own advantages. However, the side effects of the cosmic parasite still exist, and the host will still instinctively feel the need for energy, but it is not so obvious. Leo's armor uses a red nano-painted coating throughout the body. In addition to the chest armor with a little silver as an embellishment, it is mostly covered with silver paint. The optical eyepiece is the same V-shaped as the 7 armor, but the color has changed to green. There are eagle-like crowns on both sides of the head, a horn in front extends outward, and there is a laser lamp on the forehead that can emit small lasers. In addition to the eyepiece, Leo's armor is also somewhat similar to the 7 armor in terms of armor coverage, but it will be lighter and more flexible. In addition to the laser lamp on the forehead, Zero did not add any additional light weapons, and all attacks can only rely on close combat. As soon as he put on the Leo armor, the high-power thrusters on his legs and wrists spewed out some fireworks, and as the battle intensified, the Burning Lion system extended from the over-limit release system would convert excess heat into kinetic energy. Boom boom. At this time, the mercenaries under the Arkham Knights remotely controlled the tanks to surround Jello and Donna. In an instant, 20 aiming lines appeared on Jello and Donna respectively. Not afraid of these so-called unmanned tanks, Jello turned his head and said to Donna, "You go and deal with those tanks. I can deal with these 2 guys alone." "That's what I meant." Donna was very angry when she just fought with Prometheus. Now there were some sandbags for her to hit, so she agreed. Jumping off the crane, Donna rushed towards the unmanned tanks that attacked her. Anyway, there was no living person in them, so she could just use her skills. After Donna, Jello also jumped off the crane. He stood with his feet one in front of the other, his left hand stretched forward with a palm, and his right hand clenched into a fist and closed at his ribs. Karate? Prometheus, who was proficient in all martial arts in the world, could tell at a glance what kind of martial arts this was. "You're wrong, and you will soon know what kind of martial arts this is." Jello shook his head slightly to deny it, but B1 rushed towards Jello like a mad bull. This time Jello didn't hold back. The wrist thrusters opened, and the blazing flames wrapped around Jello's hands. He shifted his center of gravity slightly forward, and his left hand turned into a fist, and hit forward, blocking B1. The right fist came out from the side, and B1, who was quite inexperienced in actual combat, couldn't respond. He was hit by this right fist and flew sideways towards Jello. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Jello bent his left arm, calculated the time, and reversed the wrist thrusters. The blazing flames sprayed in another direction, adding power to Jello's elbow strike. Boom. The elbow hit B1's back, breaking several of his vertebrae and sending him flying backwards. "We can't let this go." Prometheus' eyes lit up. If he couldn't suck Jello's energy, how could he suck a guy who lacked combat experience and was even the weakest on the field? That sturdy body burst out with a terrifying speed. With a whoosh, Prometheus disappeared from the spot and reappeared next to B1. Prometheus put his hand on B1 and continuously extracted energy from B1's body through the exposed skin of B1. Jello didn't sit idly by and watch this happen. He started the thrusters at full power and flashed to Prometheus' side. He put his 4 fingers together and cut towards Prometheus from top to bottom. A white arc appeared in the rainstorm, and countless raindrops were cut in the air. The rain curtain seemed to have a fault, and Prometheus was forced to stay away from B1. But even in such a short time, Prometheus also extracted some energy from B1. B1, who lost some energy out of thin air, was definitely not feeling well. His skin became dry, his stature became short, and his breathing became rapid. Since his birth, B1 experienced for the first time what it meant to be weak. At this time, an order appeared in B1's helmet. "Stop fighting and leave the battlefield to the guy who seems to be Prometheus. Your task is to recover B0 and the Spizia missile. I will give you a chance to take revenge." HMPHB100 indignantly, and then hammered the ground in anger, but the ground was fine. Instead, B1 felt a little pain in his hand. Finally, Taking a look at Prometheus and Zero, who were confronting each other, B1 went to recover B0 and the Spasium missile very angrily. In the rainstorm, countless raindrops were shattered by the aftermath of the battle between Jello and Prometheus. Fists, elbows, knees, every part of the body is a weapon for Jello and Prometheus to kill the enemy. After hundreds of moves, Jello and Prometheus collided with the heaviest punch. Bang! The shockwave was so strong that it created a vacuum zone with the two of them as the core in the rainstorm. Prometheus could not take down the opponent in a short time, so he jumped back and began to think about how to defeat Jello. Jello was also sorting out the fighting skills he got from Prometheus with the efficient learning machine. If he was going to kill Prometheus, Jello had more than a dozen ways to kill him, but Prometheus was currently one of the strongest humans in the world in fighting skills. How could the studious Jello Kent miss such an opportunity? After the adjustments were completed, Jello rushed towards Prometheus again, and Prometheus also fought with Jello after letting out a battle roar. Chapter vs. Prometheus. Gotham, Earth. Gotham Harbor. Prometheus, blessed by the cosmic parasite, rushed towards Jello. In order to confuse the enemy, Prometheus folded and left a dozen after images behind him. With every step Prometheus took, he could feel a piece of floor being crushed by him, and his strength increased accordingly. Flashing to Jello's side, Prometheus controlled the bones in his body to make them proliferate, and a sharp blade extended from his right wrist, and the bone blade stabbed towards Jello's head. Sensing Prometheus' attack, Jello raised his arm to block it, and after pushing it away, Prometheus exposed a flaw. With the other hand, he put four fingers together, and the wrist thruster started. The raging fire immediately enveloped Jello's wrist, turning it into a flaming spear, stabbing towards Prometheus' throat. The standard finger in Wing Chun. When did he learn this? Prometheus thought to himself. Just as he was about to retreat, Jello activated the second stage of acceleration of his wrist thruster. The flames became more intense and pierced his throat at a speed that Prometheus could not react to. This finger pierced Prometheus' throat, and Jello even felt that he could even pull out Prometheus's trachea. But how could Prometheus be defeated so easily? Prometheus was shocked, and power burst out from deep in his body, turning into a shockwave that spread around. The container 100 meters away was even twisted and deformed. Jello was also shocked and retreated slightly due to the close impact, and his hand was withdrawn from Prometheus' throat. Taking this opportunity, Prometheus stretched out his hands to Jello's legs. After grabbing Jello, Prometheus' arms became stronger and accumulated enough strength to throw Jello to the ground. If this bomb throw succeeds, Jello will definitely greet this land with the back of his head touching the ground. In response, Jello leaned back to the ground, his feet buckled inwards and tightly grasped Prometheus' neck. The power of the wrist thrusters increased, causing Jello to turn down to a kneeling elbow position. After finding a support point, the thrusters on his legs started, and two flames sprayed out from Jello's legs. This bomb thrower was cracked by Jello. The bomb thrower was cracked by Jello, and Prometheus also flew backwards. He flew backwards in the direction of several engineering machinery, and after knocking down several cranes in a row, Prometheus lay on the front of a truck. The front of the truck was dented by Prometheus, surrounded by twisted steel and broken glass. Prometheus, who was definitely uncomfortable, wanted to get up, but a cold mechanical sound came to his ears. Burning Lion System Activation Roar. Prometheus seemed to be distracted by the roar of a lion, and Jello would not miss such an opportunity. He raised his foot and stepped on Prometheus' head. Prometheus, who barely reacted, turned over in a hurry, but Jello still stepped off a piece of the helmet on his head, and there were sparks flashing at the damaged part of the helmet. After avoiding the trampling, Prometheus immediately reached out to grab Jello's ankle, but Jello dodged to the side and Prometheus failed. While Jello was dodging, Prometheus immediately jumped out of the front of the truck and swung several powerful swinging punches at Jello. With the advantage of being shorter than Prometheus, Jello dodged repeatedly and seized the opportunity to attack and hit Prometheus's lower abdomen. Because the Burning Lion system was turned on, Jello's strength was stronger with each punch. After 5 punches, Jello blasted Prometheus back. After inserting his legs into the ground, Prometheus slid backwards for nearly 300 meters like a plow before barely stopping. At this time, Prometheus also had the same weakness as the parasite, too fast energy consumption. Although he would not lose his mind, Prometheus began to feel his vision blurry and his breathing was no longer stable. He looked in the direction of Jello and murmured, "How can this guy's fighting skills grow so fast? Has he been trained by a fighting master for who knows how long?" Thinking of this, Prometheus also guessed that there was a fighting master behind Jello who had trained Jello for more than 10 years, and Jello had just tied with him because Jello had not found the rhythm. Without giving Prometheus more opportunities, Jello quickly ran in front of Prometheus and jumped to a height of 30 meters at a high speed, then turned on the thrusters to speed up his falling speed. Prometheus was unable to dodge and was kicked in the left arm by Jello. Boom! The power exploded in the left arm, and Prometheus' entire left arm was kicked to pieces by Jello. The blood, muscles, bones and nerves were mixed together and turned into a pool of mud. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Jello activated the second stage acceleration of the thruster, and the speed became even more terrifying. With a single hand knife, he cut off the bone blade that Prometheus had grown. With a thought, the bone blade stabbed towards the knee joint of Prometheus' right leg under Jello's thought control. With a pop sound, the bone blade entered the flesh, causing Prometheus to half kneel on the ground. Seeing that Prometheus had no ability to fight back, Jello slowly stood up and questioned Prometheus, "Where did you get the cosmic parasite from? Tell me." "Ha ha ha," Prometheus sneered disdainfully, and looked at Jello coldly. "How naive and pitiful you are. I'm the savior of sinners, how could I tell you this heroic information? Ha ha ha." Although this Prometheus is not the original, he has the original's hatred for justice. You're right, I may be naive, but I'm definitely not a hero. Staring at Prometheus, Jello slowly retreated and distanced himself, releasing blue particles from the center of his palm. He stretched out his palm towards Prometheus, and the blue particles turned into golden beams that wrapped Prometheus and brought Prometheus to another space. This space was very desolate. Prometheus looked around in confusion. Jello, who had retreated far enough, jumped high. After jumping to a height of about 500 meters, Jello adjusted his posture and center of gravity, and gathered all his energy on his right foot, aiming at Prometheus. Boom! He used the flying kick he learned from Leo's projection, and a mushroom cloud appeared in this desolate space. It spread out 500 meters with Jello and Prometheus as the core before gradually stopping. If this move was used in reality, it would at least destroy Gotham Port. When the aftermath of the explosion almost disappeared, Jello returned to Gotham Port. In addition to him, there was also a dying Prometheus. Nightwing and the Arkham Knight. Earth Gotham. It was raining heavily in the Gotham Port, and the air was filled with a strange smell of gunpowder. After taking a flying kick from Zero that was not mature but full of force, Prometheus actually still had a breath left, but only a breath. What is this trick? With his back to Zero, Prometheus spoke intermittently. All the protective gear on his body was vaporized, leaving only the severely burned skin, and his two turbid eyes stared blankly forward. With his back to Prometheus, Zero, wearing Leo armor, spoke in a voice that Prometheus had to use all his energy to hear clearly. "Why should I tell you? You didn't tell me the information, so why should I tell you?" This series of words made Prometheus, who was only one breath left, very angry, and he almost died directly, but the people behind him would not give him this opportunity. Mission failure. Execution program activated. A voice that only Prometheus could hear rang out, and almost instantly, Prometheus fell to the ground and began to twitch. Noticing this, Jello turned around, and his emerald eyes witnessed Prometheus's miserable condition through the V-shaped eyepiece. His supervision was activated, and his perspective eyes, which were comparable to those of hospital equipment, swept over Prometheus's body. Then Jello was sure that Prometheus was dead. Someone had buried poison in Prometheus' heart and brain. When the set program was activated, this poison, which was hundreds of times more powerful than botulinum toxin, would kill Prometheus. The brain and heart were invaded by unknown toxins at the same time, and even if Jello changed to Weddy armor, he could not save Prometheus. At this time, Donna also rushed back. She had just dismantled 20 unmanned tanks, and the 30 support tanks that came in made her black windbreaker slightly damaged. As soon as she came back, Donna saw Zero wearing Leo armor and Prometheus lying on the ground without any breath of life. "Did you kill him?" Donna asked without surprise. Zero shook his head, indicating that he did not do it. He pointed to Prometheus' body and explained, "This guy has some kind of toxin in his body. The first second I defeated this guy, the toxin destroyed his brain and heart. If we take it for autopsy, we should be able to find that toxin." Toxin? Is he a killer specially trained by an organization? Donna speculated about Prometheus's life experience. "I don't know, but he should be from Gotham. Let's ask him when Nightwing comes back." Zero replied. "Okay." Agreeing with the other party's opinion, Donna and Zero waited for Nightwing's return at the Gotham Port. About 5 minutes later, Donna and Zero waited for Nightwing, who was dusty and his black and blue battlesuit was still a little damaged. Looking at the two, Nightwing said in a hoarse voice, "I'm back." Have you found anything useful? Donna asked Nightwine. With a long sigh, Nightwine found a place without rain to sit down, and then said to the two, I found that Arkham Knight might be one of my brothers. That guy called Arkham Knight, is he your brother? Donna frowned. She found that things had become complicated. Jello, who had known this fact for a long time, looked at Nightwine and asked, how did you know? Let me tell you slowly. Time went back to not long ago. Nightwine shuttled between the buildings of Gotham to track down Arkham Knight. Nightwine's movements were agile and light, and it should not be difficult to catch up with the not-so-agile Arkham Knight. But, as Jello said, Arkham Knight was very familiar with everything about Nightwine. When Nightwine used the hook gun, Arkham Knight predicted the trajectory and broke the rope with one shot, causing Nightwine to fall heavily. But in the end, Nightwine still forced Arkham Knight into an alley that Arkham Knight and Batman will never forget, Crime Alley. Who are you? Although he said this, Nightwine had already had a vague answer in his heart. Looking at Nightwine, Arkham Knight did not take out his pistol, but spread his arms and said in a mocking tone, shouldn't Robins be very smart? Oh no, you haven't been a Robin for a long time. After that, Arkham Knight looked around. At this moment, he seemed to see the kid who stole Batman's tire. But that was in the past. Arkham Knight put his eyes back on Nightwine, and then attacked Nightwine. Arkham Knight's body is much larger than Nightwine, which gives him a lot of advantages. He suppressed Nightwine with a rough offensive. The more he fought with Arkham Knight, the more Nightwine could see who this powerful fighting move belonged to. Just relying on fighting skills, Arkham Knight and Nightwine are actually on par, and it is difficult for both of them to defeat each other. After about 100 moves, Arkham Knight and Nightwine separated. Nightwine's head echoed with the words that Jello gave him before he left. You must always remember the wonders of this world. Arkham Knight may be someone who has died before. An ancient Chinese saying from Shenzhou appeared in his mind. Those involved are confused, but those who were on the sidelines can see clearly. Nightwine felt that what Jello said made a lot of sense. He sighed, looked at Arkham Knight, and begged. Come back, Jello. Bang! Before Nightwine could finish his words, Arkham Knight interrupted him with a gunshot. Don't mention that name. Grayson. I can't go back. I'm back for revenge. Tell him to let him know this. Arkham Knight's voice was full of anger and all the emotions that Nightwine could think of. Then, the angry Arkham Knight dropped a smoke bomb and disappeared in front of Nightwine, and Nightwine also returned to the Gotham port and reunited with Jello and Donna. If I remember correctly, you told me about this brother before, right? Jello walked up to Nightwine and stretched out his hand to pull him up. You regretted it at the time, and told me that he wouldn't die if you didn't leave, so don't let him leave again this time, okay? Nightwine looked at Jello in a daze, and Donna added at this time. Although I don't understand what happened between you and your brother, the most important thing now is to bring him back, isn't it? With the encouragement of the two, Nightwine's mood became excited. He stretched out his hand and grabbed Jello's hand, and stood up from the ground. Jello also said after seeing Nightwine cheer up. In that case, I will do everything before you find your brother. How about this agreement? Chapter Truth. Earth Gotham Port. With Jello's encouragement, Nightwine was obviously excited, and Jello patted Nightwine on the shoulder at this time, just like two good buddies. But the clues here are broken. Maybe I have to solve the Scarecrow first. Jello said to Nightwine. The clues are broken. What's going on? Nightwine asked in confusion. The thing is, then, Jello told Nightwine everything that happened before, and when Jello mentioned Prometheus, Nightwine told Jello something on the spot. This is impossible. Prometheus was caught 3 months ago, and he has been imprisoned in Belle Rive prison until now. Even if the Arkham Knight released all the lunatics in Arkham Asylum, he could not appear in Gotham. Nightwine told Jello a somewhat strange fact. Wait, who is this body lying on the ground? Donna said on the side. Let me see. Nightwine said as he walked towards Prometheus' body. He checked the important parts of the body and then said to the two. He did die of poisoning, but he couldn't be Prometheus. He might be a substitute or a clone. But he created a clone of Prometheus and gave him a super strong cosmic parasite, making him so strong that even I have to work hard. Putting all the clues together, Jello felt as if he had touched a very large network. This network is intricate and intertwined by countless black hands. These people created Prometheus clones, resurrected Jason Todd, organized armies, and provided weapons. Thinking of this, Jello recalled an organization, the Illuminati. However, there are more than just the Illuminati on Earth with dirty hands. There may be other forces at work, which makes Jello dare not make a conclusion even if he has memories. Things are getting more complicated. Donna looked at the two of them and said, so should we continue to investigate this broken line, or go to, I need to tell Batman about this first. As he spoke, Nightwing walked to a secluded corner and contacted Batman. What's the matter? Batman on the other end of the communication sounded very decadent, which made Nightwing a little worried. He didn't know what happened to Batman, but he had to tell the truth. Listen, Bruce, the true identity of the Arkham Knight is actually Jason. At the same time, in a loft in Chinatown, Gotham City, Batman, who had just been kneeling on the ground, stood up suddenly. At this moment, even Batman couldn't help but tremble. Dick, repeat what you just said. Obviously, Batman didn't dare to believe what Nightwing said was true. Jason is still alive and has become the Arkham Knight. Nightwing repeated. This is impossible, Batman said in a daze, and he soon remembered that the person who told him the news of Jason's death was the Joker. Oh, Batboy, I must have killed that stupid guy, your bird is lying to you. The Joker's voice appeared in his ears, but Batman ignored it, because Batman knew very well that even if he buried Jason with his own hands, Jason might not die. At this time, Batman thought of a person who had lived for 800 years, Ra's al Ghul. If it was Ra's al Ghul who stole Jason's body and soaked Jason's body in the pool called Ellis Road, then all this would be possible. Moreover, with the power accumulated by Ra's al Ghul in 800 years, it is enough to provide Jason with an army and bring him weapons. But no matter what, Arkham Knight is Jason, Bruce. You have to go find him. Nightwing repeated this fact, wanting Batman to recognize all this. After thinking everything through, Batman, who had just witnessed Barbara Gordon committing suicide in front of him, felt a little relieved. He hesitated for a moment before saying to Nightwing, I will, but I still have to deal with the threat of Scarecrow. Leave Scarecrow to us. Nightwing replied decisively, the only thing you have to do now is to find Jason, even if it's just to meet him. Hearing Nightwing's words, Batman knew that Jello and his Groot did not leave Gotham as he said, which was exactly what he wanted. Only this time. After a little hesitation, Batman replied to Nightwing. As soon as the voice fell, Batman ended the communication, and Nightwing walked back to Jello and Donna. He agreed. Jello asked Nightwing. Nightwing nodded and said to the two, well, now, Scarecrow is our target. Then where do we start to investigate now? Donna looked at Nightwing and said. If Scarecrow wants to spread a large amount of poison gas at one time, he needs a machine that is large enough to spread the poison gas to the whole city in a short time. Jello looked at the two and expressed his thoughts. I have armor, and the speed at which the poison gas affects me is not that great. Even if it works, it can last for a while. Moreover, I have perspective eyes, so it is easy to find the machine. How about you two go find Scarecrow together? Okay, let's arrange it this way. I have no objection. Nightwing and Donna returned together. Then, the three of them separated. Jello drove the Ewing down to find the machine that can spread the fear gas in Gotham, while Donna and Nightwing were looking for Scarecrow in the city. At the same time, in the sewers of Gotham, B1 was walking in the sewers with B0's nutrition capsule and the Spasium missile warhead. He didn't put down B0's nutrition capsule until he reached the designated location. As soon as B1 put down the nutrition capsule, a long black box floated over along the sewage, and the voice of Lex Luthor sounded in B1's helmet. The thing that can help you redeem yourself is inside. As soon as Lex's voice fell, B1 could not wait to open the box, and then a black armor appeared in front of B1. The armor was mainly black, with silver lines in some areas. The shape was very ordinary. If it were not for the thickness, B1 would have thought it was a tights. The W Project's Spasium suit has a lot of yellow solar radiation built in, which can provide you with strength. Oh, and this box can also be turned into a missile launcher. It can be used to launch the Spasium missile. How about it? How about the power I gave you? Very good. B1 said this almost with his back teeth beaten. Chapter Fear Gas. Earth Metropolis. In the underground laboratory of the Cadmars Project, in a room that only one person can enter, Lex Luthor is leaning on an ergonomic swivel chair. His shiny bald head begins to reflect light under the light. He closes his eyes slightly, as if thinking about something. If that's all, you can't beat Ultraman, B1, but Gotham is really lively tonight. There's even a clone. As one of the most powerful people in the Lighthouse Country, Lex Luthor knows very well that Prometheus is still imprisoned in Belle Rive prison. How could he have the opportunity to bring a cosmic parasite to Gotham to make a scene? A figure vaguely appears on the screen in front of him, and the communication ringtone also rings in Lex Luthor's ears. Answer it. Lex said softly, and then an extremely rough face appeared in front of Lex, but he spoke in a very polite tone. "Good evening, Lex." Lex asked, "What's up, Vandal? Was the Prometheus clone your work?" The rough-looking but very polite man continued, "Lars Augustinite that he did it." Lex raised his eyebrows and asked back with a disdainful tone, "Do you think I would make such an ugly experiment?" Interesting, since it was not created by any of us. Who on earth created it, and with such high technology? Vandal Savage touched his angular chin. "So, there is another organization doing something very dangerous?" Lex Luthor seemed to be interested, and the whole person suddenly became serious. Tens of thousands of years of life have allowed Vandal Savage to master countless trump cards. Even if the opponent is a god, he is sure to bite a piece of meat from the other party. And when facing another organization hidden in the dark, he also seems to be calm and even at ease. We can check them out if we have a chance. I'm curious about what they want to do. However, you should keep an eye on Gotham tonight. Maybe you can get something unexpected. After speaking, Vandal Savage ended the communication, and Lex was able to continue to watch Gotham remotely through the satellite. He found Jello's trace and informed B1, who was wearing the Spesium metal suit. At the same time, in Gotham, Jello was driving the Uindum in the streets and alleys. In his past memories, Jello remembered that Scarecrow spread the fear gas to the whole city through a tank. The tank was very large and it was not difficult for Jello to find. After about 10 minutes of speeding, Jello found the tank in a commercial street. He got off the car and stood behind that tank. The name of this tank is Heavy Rain. It is red and white. It belongs to the category of heavy tanks. The armor is also very thick among ordinary tanks. Even the 60mm cannon on the Batmobile cannot penetrate it. It can only be broken gradually by roundabout guerrilla warfare. But this storm tank seemed so vulnerable in front of Jello. Just in case, Jello put on the Eddy armor, which is highly auxiliary and can handle most special situations. With a thought, invisible ripples spread out, and the barrel of the storm tank was bent first, followed by the armor. The storm tank was disassembled by Jello again and again. The driver of the storm tank was not the Arkham Knight in his memory, but a mercenary. After knocking him out, Jello found 2 large cans of fear gas from the storm tank. The biggest role of this storm tank is not frontal combat, but to spread biochemical gas on the battlefield. If these 2 large cans of fear gas are released through the storm tank, the whole Gotham will be affected. Putting these 2 large cans of fear gas into the broken watch, Jello recalled the original plot. As an event that Jello is most familiar with, Batman in the later stage of the game will be gradually eroded by the Joker personality, and Scarecrow's fear gas exacerbates this process. By the end, Batman has been occupied by the Joker personality. But at this time, Scarecrow happened to give Batman, whose body was occupied by the Joker personality, an injection, which made the Joker personality fearful and gave Batman a chance to defeat the Joker personality. Now, 2 large bottles of fear gas fell into Jello's hands. When he met Batman, as long as the old Bat showed a little abnormality, Jello could ensure that there was no fresh blood in the fear gas of Master Wayne, and the new Joker personality would disappear without a trace. Just as Jello was about to leave, a figure in a black battlesuit stopped him again. "You can't leave." The man spoke. It was B1, who Jello was very familiar with. "You again?" Jello was surprised. "You can still fight after so much energy was sucked away." "To prove myself, I will definitely defeat you, Ultraman," B1 said firmly. He walked slowly towards Jello, and the boots of the black battlesuit made a crisp sound when they stepped on the ground. "Do I need to prove it?" Zero shrugged and looked at B1 with a playful look. Then he held his right hand in front of his abdomen, opened the Ultra buckle, and a large number of blue particles gathered to form a lightsaber. Zero swung his right hand hard in the air to form a blue arc of light. The blue lightsaber pointed at B1, and his tone was full of fighting spirit. "But if we have to fight, I'm definitely better than you. Then open your eyes and look at my new power." B1 roared, stepped on the ground, and ripples appeared behind him, and the surrounding houses were shattered by it. "What's going on?" It stands to reason that he also has a biological force field, so he shouldn't cause such great damage to the surrounding environment. Zero was puzzled as he drew his sword to assist B1. The fist and sword collided, and fierce sparks scattered, making Zero clearly feel that B1's power has increased. "Have you taken stimulants?" Zero stared at B1's merciless and venomous tongue. "How has your power become so strong?" B1 did not reply, he just silently swung another fist, and the fierce wind from his fist blew away the glass of the surrounding shops, and the fragments flew everywhere, and the goods that were not snatched away in time also flew everywhere. The fist wind was just the beginning, and then there was an extremely terrible impact. A loud bang echoed over Gotham, with the two as the core, and everything within a radius of 200 meters turned into ruins. Smoke and dust rolled, as if a sandstorm had occurred on the flat ground, impacting the core. Zero was still fighting with B1, but wearing the Eddie armor that was not excellent in terms of power increase. Zero seemed to be a little tired, and his calves were pressed into the ground by B1. That's not all. Ultraman. Along with B1's wanton and arrogant laughter, a missile with a long tail flame was also approaching Zero at a high speed. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone, see you in the next video.